Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Inlay Terms. This is a special election episode where we're having a panel. We got three candidates with us today. We have some mock questions, and I see we're voting Jason Levine today. Nice sign, Jason. I like that. We're gonna jump right into it. I don't like to waste too much time, so that if we have spare time at the end, I can ask you some follow-up questions. Some rules. I just ask the candidates if you could please mute your microphones until I bring you up. I'm going to ask a question, and when I do, I'm going to bring you up like so, and then you're going to have 90 seconds to answer the question, and then after the 90 seconds, I'm going to interrupt you visually like so. And if you keep rambling, at some point, I'm going to start interrupting you and asking you politely to respect the time of your other fellow candidates. So the questions today, they're going to be very, very biased left of center. And the purpose is to prepare the candidates for the type of questions that they're going to get in this debates, because you're not going to get any pro-Trump, right of center, libertarian questions, I guarantee you. Mr. Levine, we're going to start with you. So since you are the most seasoned of us all, you're a journalist, you have a successful podcast, we're gonna start with you. Your question, Mr. Levine, what will the People's Party do to address the rise in racism in Canada?
Well, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to represent Canada through our candidates and membership. So if you take a look at our candidates, we are a representation of Canada. We're very diverse. We do not have a racist policy in our entire platform. And when we attack things like multiculturalism, what we're doing there is we're identifying the racism that is in the current system. The Multicultural Act itself provides racism, and there's a lot of DEI-related and affirmative action-related policies across Canada that is itself racism that we're going to go ahead and take out. There is no room for race in terms of policy, and we do this with our platform and with the
Jason, you were doing so well.
I'm back. And one of the founding principles is respect. I guess CSIS doesn't like what I have to say sometimes, so my apologies for that little hiccup. But yeah, we definitely want to make sure that the People's Party represents Canada coast to coast, and we have no policy with the PPC that has any type of racism in it. So we'll address all of those ones, Payman.
Thank you very much, Jason. Next, the question will go to you, Chris. I'll repeat the question. What will the People's Party do to address the rise in racism in Canada?
Hey, man, thanks for having me on today. So in short, essentially, it's not racism that's starting to get involved in causing this divide. Really what it is, it's the rise in division. And we have the government that's pouring fuel on identity politics, and it's labeling anyone with common sense as just racist. So the PPC, we treat Canadians as individuals, not racial categories, and we don't believe in special treatment based on the color of somebody's skin. We believe in equal rights for everybody, period. And real unity comes from dropping the race baiting and focusing on shared Canadian values. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Chris. Isabel, Ms. Ferreira, same question to you. What will the People's Party do to combat the rise of racism in Canada?
Well, as my colleagues mentioned, we have several policies that we can refer to, and none of these policies are racist policies. They're common sense policies. So one thing that, or actually there's two policies that I'd like to refer to. One is the diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that policy highlights the fact that the DEI agenda is in fact racist. And so if we are experiencing an increase or a rise in racism, we could probably tie a lot of those issues back to the DEI initiatives that have been taking place in many different organizations that is fueled and endorsed by the federal government. So the PPC parties would end the DEI programs, which would address a lot of the racist policies, especially targeting the white straight male would be a big one that we see. There's a lot of discrimination actually targeting that demographics. The other thing is about the Canadian identity. And I see that you've flashed over, so I'm going to wrap it up there.
Thank you, Isabella. Isabel, sorry. We have David Ryu. I'm going to add you, David. David, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, we're going to bring you in, and you missed the first question, but no harm, no foul. Just kindly mute your mic. I just realized I made a very rookie mistake. I did not give you guys the opportunity to introduce yourself. So we'll go from Jason. If you can, please, first of all, forgive me. Secondly, introduce yourself. Tell us your writing and why you're running.
Absolutely, Payman. So first, the forgiveness. I absolutely forgive you. You have yourself a great show, and I really appreciate you bringing us on right in the middle of the campaign. I am Jason Levine, the PPC candidate for Parkland, Alberta. I'm also the host of the Levine Show. You may recognize his backdrop. And what I did, Payman, is I did this podcast in order to learn, in order to become a really good MP by meeting a whole bunch of people across the spectrum and having conversations. And I'm also an independent journalist. So you may see me pop around at the courts covering a whole bunch of things like the Coos coverage, tomorrow our Barbara Leach trial, which just ended, and a whole bunch of other very important matters here in Canada. So that's me, Jason Levine. Thank you for the introduction.
Mr. Varga, your turn.
Hi, everybody. Payman again, thanks for having me on. So yes, I am the candidate for Vancouver, essentially downtown city of Vancouver area. I lived in the city for almost 10 years now. I'm a realtor in the city and also work in the digital marketing field. I love this city, I love this country, and I've seen it go, unfortunately, in a negative direction since the Liberal government has taken over. And I represent a lot of the younger community, as I am 32 currently, and I'm getting married this year, and I would like to have kids. I want to have a family. I want to have a home. I want to put my roots here. And I find that the current government is not doing that for us. They would like to push us all out. And that's why I'm running, because I want to make a change and I want to represent Canadians first and recognize the issues that they actually have that nobody wants to talk about, unfortunately, at least in the city of Vancouver. But I represent everybody here and the system that we.
We lost you a bit there, but thank you very much, Chris. Ms. Pereira, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Isabel Pereira, and I'm the PPC candidate for Parry Sound, Muskoka. I've been a resident part-time and most recently full-time since of the riding since 1988. And I have 2 adult children and 2 grandchildren. And for many decades, I supported a political party that I realized several years ago was not actually what I thought they were. They are not aligned with my principles and values. And I did a lot of soul searching and a deep dive into all the political parties a few years ago, and realized that the PPC is the party that best aligns with my principles and values. And so I started supporting the PPC. And I feel that it's important to give people a choice. A couple of years ago, I was approached to stand as candidate because the PPC did not have a candidate in this riding. And I believe in the principles of democracy, and people should have the option of voting PPC if that's the party that aligns with them. So that's why I am a candidate.
Thank you very much. And we lost Mr. Rio. So we're going to continue on. Oh, at the stage. Mr. Ryu, apologies if I pronounced your name wrong. Could you please tell us a little about yourself, what riding you're in, and why you decided to run?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, you know what? Apparently, I'm having some troubles with my camera. You guys probably saw me log in and out a bunch of times. I'm not sure why that is. So I pretty much tried everything at this point. So
that's okay. We'll try to keep going. If you could just tell us your riding and why you're running for the PPC.
Yeah, my name is David Rioux, and I represent the Saint-Maurice-Champlain district, which is presently held by François-Philippe Champagne. And I agree with the whole platform of the PPC, and honestly, I find it's superb, and I can't understand why every single Canadian is not voting for us.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We're going to go on to the next question, and this time we're going to start with you, Mr. Varga. The next question is, what is the People's Party's strategy to combat the climate emergency?
So, about
Chris, your audio is really bad. Can you please rejoin? We're going to go to Ms. Pereira. Please refresh your browser. Ms. Pereira, same question. What is the People's Party strategy to combat the climate emergency?
Okay, so we do not recognize the emergency as being related to carbon dioxide. The People's Party of Canada recognizes that carbon dioxide is a natural element and is required for plants. And without carbon dioxide, we will not have plants, and meaning we will not have oxygen, and we will not have people. So the People's Party of Canada does believe in clean water, clean air, clean soil, clean food. So our party platform is addressing true pollutants and not the carbon dioxide hysteria. There is it's known fact that the warmth actually drives up carbon dioxide, not the other way around. So we would shift our focus away from reducing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and focusing on true pollutants. The People's Party of Canada will withdraw from the Paris Accord, which has unrealistic goals. And we would also abolish subsidies for green technology and promote and encourage new development of other technologies that would reduce harmful emissions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pereira. Mr. Varga, let's see, second time's a charm.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, much better.
Oh, perfect. So the question was about climate, you were asking, right?
Yes, the question was, what is the People's Party's strategy to deal with the climate emergency?
Well, I think the first thing we need to address is there's actually, in our opinion, at least in mine as well, is there's no climate emergency. What we're dealing with actually is a policy emergency. And the hysteria is being pushed by costing Canadians their jobs, their savings, and their ability to heat their homes essentially in the winter. So Polyev loves to talk about axing the tax, but that's really just one small aspect of what we're paying for currently. Carney just lowered it to 0%, so he didn't really axe the tax either. But what Maxime Bernier has been talking about for the longest time now is we need to withdraw from the Paris Climate Accords. And we need to stop following the UN climate derivatives and punish Canada, while China and India apparently essentially get a free pass. So that would save us a lot of money off the bat. I don't believe we need to be involved in that. And obviously axing the carbon tax is another aspect of our policy that we will also enforce. And we need to essentially unleash our energy sector when it comes to gas, nuclear, and oil. We're standing on rich resources currently that has not been taken advantage of for the longest time. And the fact that we're talking about it now, since the tariffs have been enacted, it shows a lot when it comes to the Conservatives and the Liberals, how they only now are recognizing it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Varga. I hope I don't pronounce this wrong, Mr. Ryu, you're up next. Same question. What is the People's Party strategy to deal with the climate emergency?
Yeah, first of all, the pronunciation of my name is perfect. Well, the PPC stance on this is that there's no scientific consensus on the theory that CO2 produced by human activity is causing a dangerous global warming or will in the future. And I'm paraphrasing a bit here, and they've manipulated the opinion so much that some have eco-anxiety. And many, so much so that some even say that they don't want to have children now because of climate change. While on the other hand, they cheer on mass immigration. It's a bit absurd. And I strongly agree with the PPC on all of this. And I'm going to add this. If it's all true, and we can expect huge storms, floods, fires, heat spells, cold spells, you name it. A bit like Stephen Guilbeault's famous and absurd quote, global warming can mean colder, it can mean drier, it can mean wetter. And if Canada only does about 1.5% of the greenhouse gases, shouldn't we be trying to enrich Canadians so that we can upgrade our infrastructure and our homes? And I also want to circle back to Stephen Guilbeault's ridiculous claim on global warming can mean colder. I can only imagine that he'd make such an absurd claim is because many Canadians were probably saying, like, wait a minute, it's cold here. Warming sounds kind of nice. And Guilbeault's answer to that, I guess, well, for you, it actually means it's going to get colder. So that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Ryu. I guess, Mr. Levine, you're next. Sorry, go ahead.
Not a problem at all, Payman. Yeah, my colleagues absolutely did a wonderful job highlighting the particular policies for the PPC, including getting out of the Paris Accord. But I also want to remind everybody there is no such thing as climate change, but there is environmental change. So this is where you actually do impact your environment, but not climate. The big drivers for climate change, if you're looking at evidence-based scientific research, it's the sun, oceans, and the volcanoes. So those are the things that humans are not responsible for. We're definitely responsible for our environment, though. So our local environment will take care of the water. We don't put a whole bunch of things into the streams, and we make sure that we clean up after ourselves. I also want to address the misinformation of the media, because this is a strong contributor to the misinformation around climate change that they use all the time. So we would be defunding state media for sure. We would promote shows like this. That's media. We would remove Bill C-11, C-18, and would absolutely stop 63 if they continue pursuing that one. Because getting the truth out there on things exactly like environmental change as opposed to climate change is what we need to do as well. Because we are a science-based and evidence-based policy party, and this is, I think, how we can start re-educating people on what's the truth. Because my entire life, I've been told lies. You know, acid rain, there's a hole in the ozone, and all these other problems that turns out to be, you know, environmental. We can tackle, but this climate stuff we can't. So unless we're going to start changing the sun, changing the oceans, and changing volcanoes, we really can't impact that one at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. We're doing pretty good for time, so I'm gonna hit you guys with some unscripted questions. Ms. Pereira, I'm gonna go to you first. You used the word hysteria. I believe the context was climate hysteria, or just hysteria on the part of the people. How can you deny the established, settled science of climate change across all of academia, all of the media, all of the institutions, and all of the three-letter agencies? Do you not think that it's a little bit bold of the People's Party to call it hysteria?
Well, first of all, I'd like to start off to say that it's not an established science. There's, the scientific method requires debate, rigorous debate, and that has not happened. As my colleague mentioned, the driving forces around the climate change is the sun and the volcanoes and the ocean. And when you go back in time, you can see that there's been many times, the climate is always changing, right? It's beyond the control or the influence of human beings. I think from what I remember, we influence maybe, like a couple of percentages compared to the natural forces that I guess drive climate change, which is a natural phenomenon and not a man-made phenomenon. So to say that the science is settled and that we're somehow in left field is not correct. That's disingenuous. There are many high-level scientists that are not aligned with the climate emergency, quote unquote. And the People's Party of Canada definitely sees that we need to address pollutants, but not fall into the hysteria of, kill yourself today so that you don't die tomorrow, which is the unsustainable approaches that they want to force on us.
Thank you. Mr. Levine, you mentioned the the ozone layer, and you mentioned it as if it wasn't a real threat. Wouldn't you agree that by banding together, we managed to avoid a potentially life altering threat of a hole in the ozone layer?
Well, I would say again, the science is mixed on that one there, Payman, because did we have a hole? Did we create it? Did we actually change it? Was it actually lightning in '03 that actually fixed it? And what actually caused it to begin with? The same people that will convince you that there was a hole in ozone also said we would have acid rain, also said we were global warming, but when the data said we were cooling, they changed it to climate change instead of global warming. The same people that are pushing these green agendas globally, the globalists as well, are the same one that convinced people many, many years ago that there was a hole in ozone. So I would actually say that we don't have data that proved that whether or not humans created it and then fixed it. The idea that we got rid of certain types of gases when it came to using spray cans, I don't think that was enough information to actually say that's what caused it and that's what fixed it. So I think the data is still out. And unfortunately, Payman, we haven't grouped together the way you kind of suggested there to prove this one way or another. There's a lot of unestablished facts out there that's floating around that people just recite that hasn't actually been tested, just like my colleague there mentioned. There's a scientific process that hasn't happened here. So even though we saw pictures and it was on the South Pole and then things changed, we don't even know what really caused it. There's a lot of presumptions around that. But I would like to kind of highlight here that this is an ongoing theme. Every once in a while, there's a new one by the same people, the globalists who definitely want to make sure that we are spending our dollars with them and on their initiatives and what they believe is necessary, whilst taken away from the projects that we really do need, like infrastructure, healthcare, and other projects that help Canadians.
Thank you very much. Mr. John O'Flynn, I see your question. If we have time at the end, I'll pose it to the panelists. Mr. Varga, let's go to you. You seem to not really be of the opinion that climate change is real. Would you not say that if you've been in a greenhouse, there's more CO2 in a greenhouse, and a greenhouse is warmer? Wouldn't that same principle apply to the planet?
Well, I'm not disregarding that climate change isn't real. I'm just disregarding what the people who are telling us are saying. I'm just going to go off what Jason was saying. Is that's correct. The world is changing every single year. It's been changing all throughout our history. But at the end of the day, we can only trace it back to about max the early 1800s. We don't have a real track record of how the Earth and climate has changed other than that. So when we have globalist agendas like the Liberal Party and the CPC is stating that, oh, they know the answer and that our money will help go towards that to fix this cause, I don't believe that because they really don't know. We don't have an actual answer what is really going on in the climate. All we can do as Canadians, we actually do a great job of being very efficient when it comes to recycling and making sure that the country is a clean place. But you look in countries like China and India, they don't seem to care. They're releasing a bunch of emissions into the globe that is affecting the population, and we don't say anything about that. We just attack the people who are already doing something about it. So I would say no, don't trust the people who are telling you currently that are using your money to fix the emissions. They can't fix anything. We don't have enough information to understand. And I'm not going to say climate change isn't real, but I will say that I can't trust the people who are stating what they're stating currently that we're putting our money into is going to fix any of the issues we're fixing.
Thank you, Mr. Varga. Mr. Ryu, there are roughly 5 major political parties running in Canada. Of those 5, the People's Party is the outlier. They're the only ones that are rejecting the concept of climate change. Do you think that maybe the People's Party could be wrong on this one more so than right? Mr. Ryu, you're muted.
Well, I think they are correct, but the PPC is correct, but it doesn't really matter because Canada makes such a small amount of carbon gases compared to the rest of the world that it's negligible. And the science is far from being settled there. 10,000 years ago, Florida was double the size. The Sahara Desert was a tropical jungle. Where I live 5,000 years ago, it was literally under ice with not one tree. And now it's a beautiful forest with full of trees. So yeah, Canada makes such a small portion that even if it were all true, it wouldn't make a difference.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to go on to the next question, and I swear to God, I have Alzheimer's. I believe, Ms. Pereira, you're going to be going first this time. And the question, the third question is, what will the People's Party do to promote truth and reconciliation?
Okay, so one of the things that's first on the agenda is that they're going to review we will review the Indian Act, I believe is what it's called. We would, that act, the way it currently is, keeps the Indians, I have trouble saying Indians, like the native population here, in a state of welfare. So that is definitely an issue that we want to address. One of the other things that we would like to do is look at private property rights within the reserve, to empower individuals to have more control and say over their own lives and destiny, and also look at services, like so they will be able to provide their own services to their own communities. So that would be the three big things that we would tackle right away. If I may, I just want to loop back to the environment, because if we truly had an emergency, as they tell us, why are they still, this like globalist 1%, still flying around in their private jets and cutting into the Amazon forest, a highway for the 2030 climate COP meeting in the Amazon forest? So just a few questions for the audience to think about.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pereira. Mr. Ryu, we're going to go to you. Same question. What is the People's Party going to do to push forward on truth and reconciliation?
Well, I think they are in dire need of help, and throwing money at them doesn't seem to be working. I would argue that it has the opposite effect. And I heard Maxim say that some places it's very nice, and other places it's like the worst part of a third world country. At school, it's presented that it's being caused by generational trauma, and that begs the question as why are some places very nice, like Kanawaki, for example, where when you go there, you're like, wow, I wish all of Canada was like this. And while you go on other reserves, and I've visited a lot, it's really bad. So I think the social problems are not being caused by generational trauma, because then if you would take, for example, a Native family and move them, let's say, to Mexico, and their kids grow up never being taught any of this, they would probably grow up to be completely normal, and would they still be more likely to be homeless with the crime, the domestic violence, and the substance abuse? It seems that it's being a victim of generational trauma that is being learned, that is affecting them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ryu. Mr. Levine, you're next. Same question. What's the People's Party's plan to promote, push forward truth and reconciliation?
Well, we're going to take that word truth and really understand it and go and find it. The truth and reconciliation in Canada is involving the legacy of residential schools. So we should actually go find out and have some more detailed history into that. And we should also go take these serious concerns about whether or not there are graves around schools instead of just presuming that there are. Let's go ahead and do the truth part of that so that we can get on to the reconciliation portion. I do want to highlight, though, that Mark Carney's father, Robert James Martin Carney, is someone who knows this subject very well. He's no longer with us, but he definitely was somebody that was working in this subject very well. And we should really go look into the history of this instead of just presuming the history, instead of just beating our drums and going ahead of assuming what happened. Let's get to the bottom of that. And then let's also then have healing. So if there were some graves and there were some children harmed, let's honor them and let's respect them and move on with the reconciliation. And if we find that, at the time, a lot more people were dying, except there, because they were actually being treated quite well, comparatively speaking, to the rest of the children of Canada at that time. Let's also heal from that as well and move on so that we can put this behind us. Until we have truth, there is no healing. And if we don't have healing, we can't get to reconciliation. So the People's Party is going to go find truth, sit down, have conversations with all people, look at the history, become very educated on what was going on, and then start the healing and reconciliation portion of what we need here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Levine. Mr. Varga, you're up. You're the last panelist for the same question. What will the People's Party do to promote truth and reconciliation?
Well, Jason, you're a hard act to follow because you basically said everything I was going to say. But what I'm going to add on to that is, yes, that's correct. As the PPC, we believe in truth. And I'll add on that the truth is reconciliation shouldn't be used as a political weapon to guilt Canadians, which is what's been happening for a long time now. We can acknowledge the past, but we got to focus on the future. And Indigenous Canadians, they deserve the same rights, freedoms, opportunities, and economic independence as all of us. I'll tell you what the PPC supports, which is we support ending the Indian Act, which keeps Indigenous communities under bureaucratic control, and it blocks self-defense or self-reliance. We need to direct funding to Indigenous individuals and not chiefs and bureaucrats, because that's what seems to be causing the issues that many Indigenous communities are facing currently. They're not improving, and that's the truth of the fact. And property rights and economic development on reserves, we need real tools for real progression from that. So we don't believe in endless apologies. We believe in moving forward together, and with that comes driving responsibility and dignity and respect. So essentially everything Jason said, I agree with. I'm just adding on to it, but that's how we would move forward with it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Varga. Another unscripted follow-up question. Ms. Pereira, I'll go to you. What is your view on what the events that took place at the Kamloops Residential School? You're still muted, Ms. Ferreira.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. What is your view on what happened at the residential school in Kamloops, the mass graves that were suggested that there were mass graves, and that many, many children died at the Kamloops Residential School?
Yeah, so I mean that is a very serious issue. I was going to say accusation. From what I understand, not one, there's no evidence of even one grave being located. That doesn't mean to say that it didn't happen, but until there is actually some evidence of that, I believe that we need to reserve judgment until we have some hard evidence.
Thank you very much. No, thank you very much. Next up, Mr. Ryu, same question. What are your thoughts on what happened at the Kamloops Residential School?
Well, that information for me is unverifiable. I did see the reports, obviously, that there has not been one body so far that has been dug up. And what I find worrisome is that they're trying to criminalize denying that. So in other words, you're allowed to say that the nuns, who were probably very good people and trying to help kids, were actually psychopathic murderers or something like that. And I find that a bit hard to believe.
Thank you very much. I am completely clueless today. My microphone was way over there. You gotta forgive me. Mr. Levine, you're next. Same question. You actually mentioned the residential schools in your response. What is your view on what transpired there?
215 somethings. That's what we have right now. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that we need to go find out what that is. Is it biomass? Is it human graves? And if it is human graves, what happened to these children? I don't think anybody's suggesting that they were murdered and then, kind of buried in the back. But this also was a time where people did die. We had young people dying all the time. The birth rate was different back then, and also the survival of youth was different back then. So a lot better now, but it was different back then. And if actually you look at the numbers and presume these were children, they're actually still statistically lower than the rest of Canada for the expected living. A lot more people lived in residential schools because of the programs that they were there. So this is presuming that these were graves. So let's go get these answers, because even our little conversation here keeps reminding me that we don't have enough information, like on a court level, to even bring this forward as a matter before the courts. There's no evidence here. So let's start collecting that. And I strongly believe that if we find that there was harm done and people were harmed in such a way that their life ended earlier than it should have, we will have to address that, and we will have to heal as a nation. But before then, I don't think, as one of my colleagues said, we should be guilted into presuming that these were the most horrific things that ever happened. This was a time where people died. Young people died too. And we've just gotten better since then. So let's go and look at it. Let's go dig a couple holes. Let's go beyond the presumption, and let's get to some real evidence, because I want the healing to happen. And if there is things that we need to do to reconcile with our history, like we've done with other groups in Canada, the Japanese, for example, we will do so.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. And Mr. Varga, finally to you, same question.
Yeah, so essentially the same answer, in the sense that this has been used as a huge propaganda tool. And everybody was told that they were mass graves, and then it turns out there were no bodies. We had groundbreaking, quote unquote, radar that basically groundbreaking evidence that showed that there were graves, but we had penetrating radar that showed there were soil disturbances and it was not actually human remains. But the media, the politicians, and the activists, they ran with it like it was the gospel. We had churches that were burned down. Canada Day became canceled, and people were shamed literally into silence. So if you questioned it, you were called a racist. And that, to me, that's not truth and reconciliation. That's honestly manipulation. We should actually, absolutely, we need to acknowledge the real historical wrongs that we've done in the past, like Jason was saying, but we don't need to rewrite history based on emotion and propaganda. So we don't burn down churches based on unconfirmed reports, if you ask me. We need to move forward with the facts and not fabricated guilt. And Canadians are being lied to. And at the end of the day, if we're gonna get to the answers for this, we need to get to the facts straight, and we need to actually get in there, dig the soil up, and let's see. But so far, it's been all unconfirmed reports. They're using it against us, and people don't seem to understand that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Varga. We're going to go over to the last question, and we're going to start this one off with you, Mr. Ryu. The question for you is, with the Trump administration drifting towards the far right, how can we keep U.S.-style politics outside of Canada?
Well, first of all, I don't agree that Donald Trump and his administration are far right. He's for smaller government, freedom of speech, individual rights, and so on. Those are all things that were associated with the left not so long ago. They labeled him anti-abortion when they brought down the right for the federal government to regulate abortion. And I think I would guess that Donald Trump is a billionaire, playboy kind of guy that dated models. If I had to guess, he's probably not anti-abortion, and I never heard him say that. I heard him say the opposite, actually. And yeah, I don't like also the left and the right. I think that it's more like national populist, America first, rather than right wing. And I'm a Canada first guy, so I understand where he's coming from. I would say that we're being propagandized to value globalism over nationalism with slogans like diversity is our strength. I don't think we can keep U.S. politics out of Canada. They're our neighbors, and it's kind of dumb to think that that's an option. I view them as our cousins, and I love the amazing and beautiful United States. And instead of holding disdain in our hearts for Americans, we should be making sure that they know that we admire and cherish them, and while respecting their choices.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ryu. Mr. Levine, we're going to switch over to you. Same question. Donald Trump is on the rise. The country is drifting to the right. How do we stop the U.S. style politics from entering Canada?
By identifying Canadian identity, make sure that we keep it. We have our own identity. We don't need to absorb or even reject the American identity. We have our own identity, and to cultivate that and bring it back. So the removing of the Multicultural Act is a good step forward for us. And absolutely identifying that we are a sovereign country and we are also sovereign citizens under God. This is a post I put out the other day, is we've removed God from our courts and the courts have taken over. So we now have court-given rights instead of God-given rights. I would like Canada to go back to its roots and its identity and make sure that we have our own culture back. Trying to absorb or even reject the U.S., I think, is a bit of a red herring, because they're going to do what they're going to do. But what we should focus on is what we need to do for us. And that would be to reclaim our Canadian identity, make sure we're not going to be replaced in any way, shape, or form, and fight every single day to remind ourselves that we are a very distinct culture and we should stay that way. Nationally, we can come together and work harder to make sure that we have prosperity for the future and focus on changing exactly how Canada functions, especially interprovincially, so that we all can grow and prosper by developing our resources and becoming very prosperous for the future of Canadians. And this is why I think the rhetoric from Trump is coming towards us, because we're a very wealthy country. We just haven't realized it. So it's time to start waking up to that fact. Stop worrying so much about everybody else and make sure that we take care of ourselves within our nation as we welcome others, and we also grow and prosper and have new generations here. That's where I would put my focus. We are Canadian, and let's not forget that.
You're pretty impeccable with your timing. Mr. Varga, we're going to go over to you. The question was, the U.S. is drifting to the right under Donald Trump. How do we prevent, U.S.-style politics from entering Canada?
Well, essentially, the way I would put it is we don't take cues from Trump or Biden. We stand for Canada first. So that said, let's be honest. When people say what far right, where they try to insult us that we're fascist, but essentially far right is the big term that nobody likes to hear. What they really mean is anybody who dares to question government overreach, mass migration, and globalist policies. So the PPC, what we're going to do is we're going to defend Canadian sovereignty from foreign influence, whether it comes from Washington, Davos, or Beijing. We're going to stand for free speech, individual responsibility, and limited government, and not imported ideologies from the left or the right. We'll never sell out our national interests just to follow American trends and please international elites. So we're not mimicking the US, we're really just building a Canada where Canadians actually come first. So that's the easiest way I can say it in a short time we have, but we're very much Canada first.
Thank you very much. Ms. Pereira, same question. How do we stop U.S. politics from entering Canada?
Well, this is something that I'm actually very passionate about, because what I see happening in the US is basically an us versus them mentality. And, your choices between bad and worse. It's like the pitchfork people against the torch people. And it's they make a mockery out of a democratic process, which is quite frankly really insulting to me and anyone, I guess, with a brain. So I'm going to echo what my colleagues have said. We do have our Canadian identity. We do need to have a strong look at our multiculturalism, the approaches that have been taken in the past, which is eroding our identity. So take pride in being Canadian. See things for what they are. Be respectful of each other. There's nothing worse than trying to have a conversation with someone and their only reply is an insult to you, insulting you. So that really says that they cannot have an opinion. They cannot think for themselves, and they just lash out with and hurl insults at you. So you could see that it is a joke. The elections and just the overall demeanor of the so-called elected representatives in our cousins to the south is not democracy, and we should be learning from those mistakes and not repeat them here.
Thank you. We got 15 minutes. We're going to do a bonus question. It's one from the audience. We're going to go with you, Mr. Levine, first. John O'Flynn, all the best with your local campaigns. A question: does the party have a policy or position about the first past the post system that is made use of here in Canada? Mr. Levine, you first.
There's not a direct policy, but there's certainly an understanding that we need to address and fix some of the electoral system, like elected senators, elected judges, and some other parts of our system needs to be addressed. Recall we need to be addressed because we have a lot of politicians that really believe that they're in there for 4 years and it doesn't matter what they do. When we had things like no confidence being held from us when we should have had that several years ago because of an NDP party creating a coalition. There is some things there that I think we need to change. I definitely don't like the idea of bringing in computers or voting machines. We've seen this on provincial and municipal levels where it raises questions, and also around the world where it raises questions. But I think the first past the post system is not a good, fair system, especially for a party like the PPC, where we can get 5% of the vote, but we have 0% of the representation. So we definitely should have some reviews of this in the future and see how we address it. I don't think we have a direct policy on this right now, but I think there's a general understanding that there needs to be some sort of reform when it comes to the electoral system, make it fair, represent people well, and especially out here in the West, we are screaming very loudly that election is done when Ontario's done. So we definitely understand how there's an imbalance here, and there'll be different ways that we can push that forward. But I like the idea of taking a look at other systems where it's more representational. And if you get 5% of the vote, you'll have 5% of the representation. This would have helped Canada if the PPC had 5% of the House. In the last House, we would have had a loud voice and we would have made sure that Canadians knew what was going on. But unfortunately, with the first past the post, as you see, we don't have that representation right now.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Chris, I don't envy you. That was a comprehensive answer. What's your answer to what's the People's Party position on scrapping first past the post, reforming it?
Well, I believe that PPC, we're open to electoral reform, but only if it respects the individual representation, accountability, and national unity. I believe any proposed change, such as proportional representation, should go through a national referendum, not be imposed through like backroom deals like what the Liberals did in 2015. So I don't think we would not support systems that give more power to political parties and less to individual voters, but like closed party lists or systems that create like permanent coalitions in the government. Canada needs to reform and strengthen local representation and voter accountability, not more political games, in my opinion. But the bottom line, I would say, is how can I put this? The PPC supports democratic reform. We'll never rig the rules to benefit ourselves, but we want a system that's fair to all Canadians, and a change has to come from direct mandate from the people.
Thank you, Mr. Varga. Ms. Pereira, I'll remind you the question again. Does the party have a policy on first past the post?
Okay, so the PPC does not have a policy per se on first past the post, but we do recognize that the current electoral system is not fair and just. So we would be in agreement to have a review of the process, the current process, with taking an approach of more of a representational type of electoral system. As everyone knows right now, our leader has been barred from participating in the leadership debates. This would not be the case if we had a different type of electoral system where, if based on the results of our last election, we had close to 5% of the votes, we would have had 5% representation in the House, which would automatically give our leader the right to participate in the national debates. By canceling him, we're at a huge disservice. I've noticed just locally, I have not been invited to some events that the Conservatives and the Liberals are invited to. So not only does it affect our leaders' ability to get out there and share the platform, the PPC platform, it affects local candidates as well. So this is something that we really need to push for reform. Yeah. And I mean, it was interesting because the Liberal government did promise that they would look at this particular issue in the first time around and did not.
Thank you, Ms. Pereira. Mr. Ryu, you are the last panelist for this panel session. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I agree with what the other candidates have said already. There needs to be some reform in that. I haven't seen the PPC's policy on that, but yeah, I think the main problem is also the mainstream media, which of course is it kind of rigs the system. We could say, for I don't want to back Poliev, but if he was saying he was going to defund the CBC, you could kind of predict that he'd be in trouble eventually with that, with having all the mainstream media ganging up against him. That's it.
Thank you. Sorry, I got lost in an ocean of open tabs. Okay, so just to sign off, I'll give you guys all, I don't know, let's say 45 seconds to do your elevator pitch. Why should the people vote for you? Let's see, who should we throw under the bus? Mr. Varga, we'll start with you.
I had a feeling I was going to go first. But yeah, I mean, essentially, why should you vote for me? And downtown center, where I'm in a sea of Liberal and NDP voters, I would literally just ask you, has your life gotten better in the last 30 years? For example, in my district, Heidi Fry has been the one in charge, and she's going on 84, 86. I hardly believe anybody would say their life has gotten better since she's been an MP in our district here. And all I would say is that don't trust any of the parties that are with globalist agendas. And I would highly suggest that you vote for somebody who actually cares about Canadian culture, Canadian people, and putting our people first. Because at the end of the day, we have a youth unemployment rate that is skyrocketed, who all want to live here in Vancouver, just like myself. I'm 32 years old. And we have a 15% unemployment rate with youth. So I want to improve the living situation for many of the youth as well as the older, but we need to recognize that we have to put our people first. So I highly recommend you vote for me, because I will put you first and I will represent all of your needs in Parliament without foreign deals that is going on in the background of every other party except the PPC. So thank you for everybody for listening today, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, Mr. Varga. Let's go to you, Mr. Ryu. What is your why should the people vote for you?
Well, it's exactly like Chris just said. It's not going well. It's not going well at all. We should be worried about the future of our children, the prices of houses, and also the DEI everywhere. If you're like me, a generational Canadian, you are being discriminated against. Just the other day, I was talking to one of my sons, and my son is 14 years old. I was talking to his friend, and he wants to be a pilot. And I didn't say anything. I didn't want to crush his dreams, obviously, but I was thinking, it's like, oh my God, that's you might be a straight A student and everything, but that's not really how it works anymore. So yeah, we at this point, I think we literally have to save Canada and put Canadians first. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ryu. Mr. O'Flynn, you're most welcome. It was a fantastic question. Thank you. Let's go to you, Mr. Levine. Why should the voters of, I think it's Parkland, I can't remember, why should they vote for you?
Great question, and thank you very much for the time to speak directly to the people of Parkland. It's because I'm going to be a voice. For the last 3 years, I've been a journalist bringing you the truth. Even when it wasn't beneficial to me, I brought you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I stood in front of a judge who was going to put me away for telling you the truth, and I will not be afraid of the Parliament for doing the exact same thing. I'll be that canary in that coal mine, because it only takes one to actually tell you what's coming and give you the truth and make sure that you know the warning signs about what is coming. Whether it's Pierre or Carney, it doesn't really matter who's in there. You will be represented completely. I will stand there strong and repeat what it is that I hear from you. I'll be bringing forward your voice, and I also listen to your voice. It doesn't matter what you voted in the last election. I do want to hear from you. So please come out. I have a lot of events planned out. You can go to parkland.vote to see what events I'm going to be at. I'll be in Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, Drayton Valley, and Whistle, and even up in Marythorpe to come and listen to you. And that's exactly what an MP should be doing, shaking your hand, coming to you, and have an ear for what you have. And then bring it forward with intelligence, conviction, and principles. There's no whip. Nobody's going to stop me. If you want oil, we'll get you oil. If you want pipelines, we'll get you pipelines. And if you want independence, Alberta, I'll bring that forward. Max has supported that. We're here for the people's will, and we'll bring that forward. There is no other party in Alberta that can make that promise to you, and I'll make that promise to you right now. You vote yes, I'll bring forward your yes. You want to leave, we'll start that process. And you're going to need somebody in the House of Commons for you if that happens. So Alberta, Parkland, I'm here for you, and I'll see you soon.
I got to stop inviting that guy on. He's too polished. Ms. Pereira, you're up next. Please tell your voters why they should vote for you.
All right, so I'll start off just repeating what my colleague mentioned, that the PPC does not have a whip. And as a MP, a PPC MP, you are to vote in alignment with your constituents, regardless of how the rest of the party is voting. So that's first of all. But I don't actually want to tell people to vote for me. What I want to do is I want to tell people to review all the political party platforms and decide which party actually best aligns with their principles and values. And if that party happens to be the PPC, then please join us. The time is now, and we need you. So please do your homework. Only you know what your values are, and only you can live with that decision. So do your homework, and you may discover that, the PPC is the party, as I did several years ago. So that's all I have to say. And you would be in good hands if you do support the PPC, because I will stand up for the constituents of Parry Sound Muskoka. Thank you. And thank you, Payman, for putting this on for us.
You're most welcome. I'd like to thank all the panelists for volunteering their time. I know it's election season, campaign time, so I know your time is valuable. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask that you drop down and drop off the call because we need some slots. The next panel might be very busy, but you can continue watching live. Best of luck on your campaign, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You as well.
All right, for everyone else watching, I have to go find the vote PPC button. It's somewhere downstairs. So I'm going to leave just a nice, calm, relaxing YouTube song playing in the background while I run down there. Oh no, the dreaded. Come on, I gotta go down. Skip it. There we go. I'll be right back, guys. All right. Let's get rid of this guy. How do I do this? Take down, take down. Remove that guy. Mr. RB Ham. Mr. Bayer. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. How are you guys?
I'm good. Are you? I hope you're not driving.
I'm not the driver, no.
I'm like, look at the road. Keep your eyes on the road.
With a couple of other candidates, there's Jim Boutsakakis, and we've got our famous Bill Bear.
Hey, Jim. Oh, Jim there. Hey. The PPC mobile.
We were just up at Max's event with Patricia Conlon and Frank Stronach. It's nice to hear from Mr. Magnet International himself.
Well, it's good to hear. Can I get you, Mike, Mr. Bayer, can you mute your microphone? I'm getting some echo.
You want me to mute it?
Yeah, just for now, and I'll make the introductions. Okay, perfect. So there's only two of you on this panel. The last panel, there was four of us, so we kind of had to race through. So there's two of you. You're gonna get more of my undivided attention and get more love and care, and we can go a little smoother. The format of the debate, before I let you guys introduce yourselves, we're doing it this way. So, you know, I do my spiel. I got to be the center of attention. And then when I ask a question and I want to pass it over to RB, I'll bring RB up. And then you have 90 seconds to answer. And then once you cross the 90-second point, I'm going to put myself up here. So it's visually, I'm telling you, you know, your 90 seconds are up. And if you keep talking, eventually I'll start interrupting you. RB, if I could ask for you to mute your mic too, just so we don't get any feedback. Well, it's good to see that your speakers are working today, so you can hear me. That's really it. So we have 4 scripted questions that I've shared with both of you and I've shared with the audience. And then based on how you answer those, I'm going to ask some unscripted follow-up questions. And the whole purpose of this is to get you guys prepared. I'm not trying to preach to you. I'm a first-time candidate too, but we have to get prepared for the very difficult questions that are going to be thrown our way in the campaign trail in the debates, because they're not going to be questions that are favorable to the PPC. They're coming from the other side. So we're going to start with you, RB. Why don't you take about 90 seconds to introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Richard Brent Witteringham, aka RB Ham, and I've been involved with the People's Party of Canada since the summer of 2001 when I started raising my voice about what was going on with the COVID thing. I'm quite well read and well researched on the topic of how they've been using the threat of pandemics to control people for a long time, and they were slowly introducing it. So when COVID happened, I became a public figure because I was speaking out publicly against it and ended up losing my job as a janitor at a local elementary school because I hated what was happening to the kids. It drove me crazy, especially when you knew, just doing your own research, which means reading. I found out that they were hyping the pandemic for a reason, not having anything to do with public health, and they were using behavioral psychologists to run the whole thing. And there was the government was colluding with the media, which was colluding with international entities like the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, and even the World Health Organization sent Theresa Tam to become our public health officer, and she had to sign a non-disclosure agreement to become our chief health officer. And I'm going, why are we parachuting people in from the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum and Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security? And when you read back on all the, previous things that they had been doing, I had questions. So I became publicly a public figure because I was speaking out against it. Got their local newspaper, met a guy named Mark Friesen who was associated with the PPC, the Grizzly Patriot. We got together, and he was a right winger, I'm a left winger, but we realized we had the same common interests, and we joined together, and that's how people got to know me, and that's how I became a PPC candidate this time.
Thank you very much, RB. Sorry for being so strict, but we got to stick to the schedule. So I'm just going to ask you to mute your mic again, please. And Mr. Bayer, same question to you, or I guess just introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Okay, my name is Michael Bayer. I'm proud to be the People's Party of Canada candidate for Mississauga Erin Mills. I ran as the candidate for the People's Party in the last federal election as well. I've also run in the last two provincial elections with the New Blue Party. Now, I think the what drew me into the People's Party is it was becoming increasingly obvious that all of the establishment parties had been compromised. Right? They'd been compromised and corrupted, and the PPC is really the only alternative that is left that is not sort of beholden to corporate and corporate lobbyists and foreign interests. So. That's it, really. I'm very happy to be part of the PPC team. I'm an independent. I'm always going to vote independently, but the PPC is a party that allows for that, right? The other establishment parties, if you don't do what you're told, you get thrown out of the party immediately. So that's where we are. I'm just glad to be part of the PPC team.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bayer. Oh, RB, you're back. So we're gonna switch to the questions, and I'll switch around the order. But just to start, we'll go to you, RB, with the first question. And the question is, what will the People's Party do to address the rise in racism in Canada?
Racism. Well, one of the main reasons why there may be a slight tick in the reports of racism is because the media concentrates on it so much in a way to divide the people, have us fighting against each other all the time, right? There was a study that came out after Occupy Wall Street happened down in it happened in Canada too also, but it was widespread. Occupy Wall Street, where the left decided to get together and they'd had enough with Wall Street, and they did some protests, right? But they didn't really have a leader. You know what I mean? And but at the same time, there was the Tea Party that was going on also from the right. So they were both protesting the same thing, right? Corporate control, Wall Street shenanigans, and all that. And the left were doing Occupy Wall Street, and the right were doing their Tea Party movement. And the rise in media mentions about racism and divisive strife like that just spiked, because the media went, oh my God, look, we'll pit these guys against each other. And of course, the government was involved. Obama famously cracked down on the Occupy Wall Street. He sent the cops into Security Square in New York City, and they cracked skulls on but the Tea Party was allowed to skate because they weren't seen as that much of a threat. But at the same time, they divided the country between the left and the right, between immigrants and citizens, and it was being done on purpose. And I realized, hey, this is crazy, because the Occupy Wall Street movement and the Tea Party movement were complaining about the same things, but they were being divided almost on purpose, right? And so that's what I look at it as. I believe we've come a long way. Martin Luther King Jr. famously said, I want there to be a time where we care more about the content of a person's character than the color of their skin. I think we've gotten there. I really do. I mean, the Americans elected a black president with a Muslim name twice. I think we're much better position than we were, say, in the 60s and 70s. So I really think we've got to concentrate on that, realizing that it's being used to divide us. And if we talk about that aspect, and I think we'll be okay.
Thank you very much, RB. Mr. Bayer, we're going to go to you. The same question. How is the People's Party going to address the rise in racism in Canada? In 90 seconds.
Well, I think it's one of the simple solutions is to get a hold of the issue of mass immigration. We've brought in too many people too quickly, and they have not adapted to the Canadian cultures and Canadian values. And there's also a problem. I agree with the problem with the media. The media will do anything like that to fixate on racial tensions because it sells. It gets viewers, sadly. Right. But for the most part, I would agree. Canada is one of the least racist countries in the world. The racism problem that might be, ticking upwards is because we've got 5 million people that are scheduled to leave the country that are under temporary status, and they're about to become illegals. And we've got no plan in place We've got no plan in place to get them to go back to their country. We've got to put a pause on immigration until we can get things sorted out. And then we'll get it, whatever increasing racism is happening, we'll get it under control, right? But we can't expect there not to be racism if we bring in people from all over the world and we don't expect them to abide by Canadian law, by Canadian customs and Canadian culture. Of course we're going to see more racism.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bayer. Sorry, I keep calling you RB. Mr. Winteringham. I muted your mic, by the way, Mr. Winteringham, so you have to unmute. You mentioned the Occupy Wall Street movement. Here in Canada in 2022, we had a similar movement that went in and occupied Ottawa and severely disrupted the day-to-day lives of the good citizens in that city. What's your view on the particular protests in Ottawa?
They were incredibly peaceful, and in fact, crime dropped while they were there. But at the same time, they came at a time where there was those lockdown rules in effect and stuff. But I mean, there was no outright violence. They had bouncing councils. They were dancing the streets. They were honking their horns too much. And then the Ottawa mayor or whatever requested them not to do it anymore, and the police chiefs requested them not to do it anymore, and they stopped at the honking stuff. But they were there for a legitimate reason. They were there to represent the working class, fighting against unnecessary draconian measures introduced during that time. It was unscientific, and they were obviously designed to control us. That's a direct attack on our liberty and freedom. And we have the right to redress these things and protest. And I agree with protests from the right and the left. For instance, these pro-Palestine protests, I think they have a right to do that. And they shouldn't be demonized and called pro-Hamas and stuff like that. When I marched against going to Iraq, into the Iraq war, nobody was calling you pro-Saddam. And if you were, you laughed at them because that's stupid. I'm anti-war. I'm censorship, against free speech. I'm pro free speech. So that was what was it all about. And the same thing that happened to the poor Occupy Wall Street people eventually happened to them, right? Nobody would, if Trudeau had gone and addressed their concerns, had a talk down with some of them. In the other instance with the Occupy Wall Street movement, Obama never went down there and actually talked to anybody. He just viewed it as a threat, and they cracked down on it. And that's how Trudeau handled this, as a threat, and cracked down on it and demonized everybody that was there because it was good for politics. It was good for his politics. But that thing could have been over way better if we had a real leader. If Trudeau had gone down there and addressed their concerns, and he could have tempered it all down, and it could have been done in a week. But he didn't have the balls, and that shows you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Winteringham. Mr. Bayer, now a follow-up question for you. The original question was, how do we deal with the rise in racism in Canada? And your question, you seem to be able to be criticizing the immigrants that are here. What would you say to the argument that immigrants they have a right to be here as well, and we should not be demonizing them for coming
how do
here?
they have a right to be here? It's like anybody has a right to be a guest in your home. No, Canada is a sovereign country. We have the right to choose who we let into the country, right? And it just doesn't make any sense. Now, as far as going to some of these Palestinian protests, I have a different view of things. When you start blocking down the streets, you're trying to send a political message. You're saying that we're in power, we're in control here, and the police aren't doing anything. The police, again, are showing. When you're talking about racism and you have a group that can openly defy the law, and the police do nothing, and then if I tried to do the same thing, I'd be arrested. What do you think that that's not going to cause racism? Of course it is.
Okay, thank you very much for your response. I don't know if you froze there, or are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here with you.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Mr. Bayer. I'm going to go to the next question, but I'd just like to point out, just so there's no confusion.
I don't blame the immigrants. Actually, I blame our own government. Our own government has misled people and brought people here under false pretenses. But a lot of them actually knew that it was false, right? All of these phony colleges. I'm sure that hundreds of thousands of people came to Canada knowing that they weren't really following things in a proper process.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to go to the next question. I just want to nip this in the bud. The way this works, I'm going to ask a question, and both of you have to answer the question. I don't want you to fall in the trap of you two answering each other's questions. So bear that in mind, please. The next question, I'm going to give it to you, Mr. Bayer. You'll go first. What is the People's Party strategy to combat the climate emergency?
There is no climate emergency. I mean, it's ridiculous. The science and the evidence is clear, right? It's a grift. The green movement is a gigantic money grabbing grift. Billions of dollars are going into the hands of people. If we have the climate has been changing and always will change. The slight temperature increase is going to do great things for the farmers. The crop yields are going to increase. You know, it's not some kind of catastrophe. The media is good at catastrophizing and making some issue look like it's the doom and gloom and the end of the world. We are not going to die of some kind of climate catastrophe. It is not going to happen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bayer. Mr. Winteringham, same question to you. What will the People's Party do to deal with the climate emergency?
Well, if people want to know what the People Party is going to do, they can go to the peoplespartyofcanada.ca, and we have an About section. You click on that, and you click Platform, and there it is, and it's concise, and I don't need to read it all out. So I'll just reiterate Mr. Bayer is saying. I kind of backing him up. It's a fact that climate change is always changing. It's a fact that the people pushing the climate change alarmism are multi-billionaires who fly around in private jets and go to Davos every year to try to decide how much gas and stuff we can use. It's a kind of ridiculous. They don't follow their own rules. The people who are trying to guilt us into doing all this stuff are the ones that are the worst egregious, do the worst things to the environment themselves. I mean, Bill Gates releasing mosquitoes and stuff. I mean, we can talk about all that stuff, but basically, Mr. Bayer is right. It's climate change alarmism. It's not an emergency, and they're using it to control us. And it's a global thing, and we have to fight it. This is where Donald Trump's instincts are right, getting out of the World Health Organization, for instance. We can't let a global entity, the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, all teaming up to collude to, in fact, pervert our sovereignty to theirs and this whole one world government system that they've been openly talking about now. They openly talk about it, that it's going to be good for us, and that eventually we have to accept that we're a pollution on the planet, we're a cancer on the planet. Their Malthusian vision for what we are is the carbon that they want to reduce. They want us to own nothing and be happy. They want us to eat bugs. They talk about it openly. And so if it's obviously a grift and a scam because they make billions of dollars out of this, and they don't even follow their own rules.
Thank you, Mr. Winteringham. Mr. Bayer,
can I add on just a quick little note on there? I'll give you a funny story. I was scuba diving in Curacao a lot of years back, but our dive boat went past what looked like a gigantic cruise ship. It turned out that it was Paul Allen's yacht, and a helicopter landed on it. He's got 2 helicopter landing pads on that boat, by the way. And apparently Bill Gates went to visit Paul Allen on his boat in Curacao. And so these are the people that are 500-foot boats and helicopters, and they're telling us what we can and can't do, and we've got to eat bugs.
Thank you. It's a fascinating story. I'm just trying to move it along. Thank you very much. Mr. Bayer, I have a follow-up question for you. Although I agree that the climate has been changing for thousands of years, the rate at which the temperatures are going up now is much faster than historically was normal.
According to who? According to who? There's so much money motivation behind these claims. It's hard to know what's accurate and what's not accurate. I don't know if it has been accelerating or not, but I am very skeptical that it's actually whatever the climate change that's happening. that it's primarily caused by man. I don't know if that's actually the case. What percentage of the climate change is caused by man? Is it 1%? Is it 99%? We don't know. Nobody knows. And if somebody's telling you that they know, they're a liar.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bayer. Mr. Winteringham, I'm going to put the same question to you. Ever since the Industrial Revolution, the temperatures have been increasing far faster than they ever have throughout the history of the planet Earth. Is that not convincing evidence that it's actually the burning of hydrocarbons that's causing the global warming?
Well, I'll just back up what Mr. Bayer said. If there's opposing scientists, people like Tony Heller, that guy from Sweden, Bjorn Lomborg. There's a guy named Piers Corbett, who's Jeremy Corbyn's brother in England. He's a meteorologist. He says that all these measurements have been not fabricated and faked, but cherry picked and what am I trying to manipulated? They, like, for instance, they'll put all the temperature readings for their global climate survey near airports, where of course it's going to be higher, right? They won't do it. They won't put them. And then they cherry pick the evidence. And there was a couple articles that just came out in the last couple of years exposing the fact that they have been manipulating the climate models, just like they manipulated the COVID models. This is all the same thing. People say, well, 90% of scientists agree. Yeah, 90% of scientists agreed about COVID too. And guess what? It's just as easy to buy a scientist as a politician. And they're all, and they're dependent on a paycheck. I forget which philosopher said, but when some wit said, when a man's paycheck depends on him being ignorant of something, he will continue to be ignorant to collect his paycheck.
That's a good one. I haven't heard that one. I'm going to we're going to go over to the third question, and I'm losing track of who's who. So we'll just go with you, Mr. Bayer. This question starts with you. The third question is, what will the People's Party do to promote truth and reconciliation?
Well, transparency, but what we need is total and full transparency. But I don't know what exactly are you talking about when you're talking about truth and reconciliation. Now we've gotten ourselves into a situation where there's a panic, a mania that's been created by the media that lied about the deaths of Aboriginal children. There has not been one body found. This entire story is a fraud. And people are still continuing on with it. And they're trying to criminalize any kind of questioning, even that there aren't any bodies or that there was no mass genocide. Canadians are not genocidal people, and we would not by nature just try to annihilate the native population. It didn't happen. It would never happen.
Thank you very much. Mr. Winteringham, same question to you. What will your party do to promote or push forward truth and reconciliation?
Well, I don't really know what the PPC's complete policy platform is on this. So I kind of go, and as long as Maxime Bernier, who calls me his favorite socialist, allows me to, I'll express my own thoughts about the matter. Of course, there was a terrible thing that happened in the 1800s and when cultures clashed, and cultures have clashed for thousands of years. There have been mass movements of people. Just look at England. It was the Angles and the Saxons and then the Vikings. Everybody took turns suppressing everybody else, and you just can't. And that's history, and we have to realize that what happened 150 years ago has nothing to do with us, really. And but we have to also recognize that we live on a land where people were displaced so we could live here, and that happened. And there were things like people, the indigenous people were put on reserves, and then they came along the residential schools where kids were taken from their parents. They had their hair cut off, and they weren't allowed to talk their own language. That is true. That's what happened, and there was sort of a cultural genocide, but it wasn't nearly as bad as the Americans. In America, they actually killed them. We put them on reserves and tried to make treaties with them. We made mistakes. but that's from a period of that time. Now we look forward and say, okay, we can acknowledge we make those mistakes. We can try to do our best for the Indigenous people. So one of the best things we can do is get rid of the Indian Act and start treating them like people instead of subjects. And we have to stop getting away from when we give money to these nations, we don't give it to their bureaucrats and their head chiefs who then become corrupt. And I've heard that myself. I live in Saskatchewan. We have reserves all around. I'm friends with many Indigenous people, and they tell me their horror stories about how corrupt the Indian bands are, and that there's something has to be done. So, and they need fresh drinking water. So we have to recognize these things, realize it, and I have no problem with, by the way, the land acknowledgements. A lot of people say, "Oh, there's no problem with land acknowledgements, just words. It's not going to kill you, right?" What's more important is our actions, how we deal with them. Sorry.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Winteringham. Sorry. Thank you very much, Mr. Winteringham. Sorry, I just got this feedback. I enjoyed your response. I'm not cutting you off to be difficult. I'm just trying to enforce the 90-second thing. Mr. Bayer, I'm going to ask an unscripted follow-up question, sort of to hold your feet to the fire. What is your view on the residential schools? Specifically the one in Kamloops with the mass graves, but just generally, like, do you think that the residential schools were all beneficial, or do you agree that some bad things happened?
No, of course, I'm sure that some bad things did happen, but a lot of these reports have turned out to be the abuse was done by older students, especially the sexual abuse. So, of course, bad things happened, but not all of them happened due to the people that were running the residential schools. And I agree, we have to get rid of the Indian Act entirely. Native people should be given exactly the same full rights as any other Canadian and the same responsibilities. We can't keep doing these kind of identity politics and having lower expectations because they were a previously discriminated against group, right? It's not working. We have to change the way we're doing things if we're going to come up with a solution. We can't keep doing the same things over and over, the same things that we have done. Now, what really disturbed me was when Trudeau apologized on behalf of all Canadians for the crimes that were committed against Indigenous people. I've never committed any crimes against any Indigenous or other people. How was he apologizing on my behalf? This kind of collective guilt idea is a sick idea, and we need to get rid of it completely.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bayer. Mr. Winteringham, I'm going to ask you a kind of a different question. I understand that you opposed what happened during the COVID lockdowns. If one day we get to the point where reparations are going to be handed out to people who were vaccine injured, would you not say that the voters, the taxpayers, should be the ones responsible in that event? So right now, you as a voter, you as a taxpayer, you as a descendant of the Canadian government of 150 years ago, you are also directly responsible for anything that happened bad to the First Nations.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. Mr. Bayer is right about the collective guilt. We've got to move on from that. It's not my fault. My fault of what happened, but it is the country's responsibility to repair and heal what did happen, because there were some abuses that took place. But it was done at that time. They thought they were doing the right thing. The intentions were good. We're going to civilize these people. We're going to introduce them to Jesus. We're going to integrate them into our society. And it does, but it doesn't work when it's kind of forced, and when you take them away from their heritage and not let them have their heritage, because we are not a melting pot in Canada. And so we have to realize that it's okay to, you can carry on to your Catholic traditions, your Protestant traditions, whatever religious traditions you have and stuff. But the bottom line is now you are a citizen of this country. And the problem with the Indian Act, like Mr. Bayer was saying, is it creates a different caste of people who have their own rules and laws. I really think we have to we got to get back to what Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision was: content of character, not color of skin, and really try to promote that and realize that Indigenous peoples, the welfare trap, and it happens to lower class people of all kinds. They get into the welfare trap where they're not incentivized to actually make their lives better and work harder, because there's an easy way to just to take the money and not have to do too much. And we're all human beings, and a lot of us fall into that trap, and then we can't get out of it. So I really think we got to get beyond that, give these people actual incentives to become full-fledged members of our society, and let's drop these caste systems. Let's drop these divisions. Try to get to one country united with the same rules for everybody, civil rights for everybody. It's the only way forward, because that's the grand sweep of history. It goes towards that, because that's why there's such things as racism and stuff, because we overcompensate in one way and we never correct it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Winteringham.
Can I follow up on that? I love that. I love that. That was great stuff. And you're 100% right, because racism is just the lowest and crudest form of collectivism. And it's lumping everyone in the same category based on some superficial thing like their skin color. But I want to add one other thing is a lot of these children that got taken away, you're going to take a look at their history and you're going to find that a lot of their parents were drug addicts and alcoholics. And it's sad, but it's true.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bayer. We're going to move, again, we're making good time. There's only two of you. We're going to move to the last question. And Mr. Winteringham, I'm going to pose this to you. With the Trump administration drifting towards the far right, how can we keep U.S.-style politics outside of Canada?
That's interesting. Far right. That's weird. I used to be far left. Now I'm far right because I believe in freedom of speech. I'm anti-censorship. I'm all of a sudden far right. Used to be far left for believing that. I'm anti-war. All of a sudden I'm far right. I used to be far left for being anti-war. These labels just drive me nuts. Trump's instincts are in the right place. He knows what the problems are, what created the problem. The problem, we all know, goes back to the 70s and 80s when the billionaire multi-corporations decided, hey, we're going to build up these third world countries like China and Mexico, send our jobs there because they'll work for cents on a dollar. We'll destroy our manufacturing base and turn us into a service economy. What could go wrong? I marched against free trade back in the day. My hero was Mel Hertig, who was the founder of the National Party, who said that's going to destroy our sovereignty, and he was right. And so we got to get back to building these our infrastructure back up again. And this whole tariffs thing, Trump's instincts are right again. But the only thing that backs you up in a tariff industry is if you have the manufacturing base to have that clout to do it. That's why China can do tariffs willy-nilly, because they control everything. They will control the shipping. If there was an actual trade war, China could beat us in 1 week. They just have to stop shipping everything to Walmart and Rona, and we were done. And we did that to ourselves. Our elites did that to us. We have to realize that our main enemy is the people that have been in charge of the economy for the last 30 years. These banksters, like Carney is the perfect expression of what is wrong with this world. Why would we elect a guy who just destroyed the economy in England when he was the governor of the Bank of England? He destroyed the English economy, came over here, destroyed our economy, and now he's appointed as prime minister. If he gets in, it's like, like you said, I forget what you said the other day, where you're being waterboarded and then they stop waterboarding you and say, aren't I a good guy? It's crazy.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Winteringham. I'm just going to mute your mic. Mr. Bayer, same question. The far right is on the rise in the U.S. How do we prevent that style of U.S. politics coming into Canada?
Well, I don't know exactly. The question's kind of an interesting question. Far right. And now what they're trying to describe is populism. And I don't think that they're going to stop populism, because populism is growing around the world. And because people are rejecting their corrupt establishment governments that do not act in their interests, that are captured by lobbyists and foreign governments. So no, there's no stopping the populism. It's going to spread far and wide until all of these corrupt establishment parties are taken out. I don't think we have an issue with far right. I mean, it's all optics, right? How many far right terrorist acts are we seeing right now? How many far left terrorist acts? How many Tesla dealerships are burning? Right? I mean, it's ridiculous. They're accusing people of being far right when they're the ones that are doing the violence and the censorship. It's absurd.
Thank you, Mr. Bayer. Mr. Winteringham, I have a follow-up question for you, which I just forgot. No, there we go. So,
Yeah.
so you spoke pretty fondly of Donald Trump. Do you think it's appropriate for you to be running for federal office when the number one threat against Canada right now is coming from Donald Trump in the form of these tariffs?
No, he's right. His instincts are right. He's right about what is wrong with the country and how to fix it. The problem is how he's going to do it. I don't agree with it. Like, as far as the geopolitical, I know you didn't ask geopolitically, but geopolitically, I don't have. He's showing that his instincts are right, trying to say end wars. But the way he's going about doing it and who he's appointing to do it can be problematic, as we can see in the Middle East right now. Why are we threatening Iran? Doesn't that start World War III because Russia and Iran are close, blah, blah, all that stuff. Okay. And I have issues with that. But domestically, his instincts are right. We got to get back to a manufacturing base. We have to get back to making our own stuff. We got to stop being service economies. We've got to we got to build factories. We got to get back to having being able to work a man working a job. He can work one job. He doesn't have to work two or three to make ends meet. He can go on vacation. He can raise a family. Right now, that's been taken away, especially from the younger generation. We got to push that. The housing crisis, everything. They're pricing the younger generation out of the Canadian dream that we grew up under. And we always believed that our kids would be better off than us. That's stopped now. All of a sudden, the next generation is going to be worse off. That means we're going in the wrong direction, and we have to get away from being a service economy, building up our manufacturing base, and really cracking down hard on these foreign entanglements. Because look what's happening with Sam Cooper writes great reports about what's going on with the Chinese government's influence on us, right? Because we're not putting our foot down and saying, okay, no more. We got to stop this fentanyl stuff. We got to really crack down. We got to bring back our own. We got to build up our military strength, build up the RCMP to do things to go after the real criminals, not protesters. Criminals, the ones doing the fentanyl, the ones that are causing all the problems at the border. And Trump's right about that too. This whole thing can be smoothed over with negotiations and realizations that we have shared interests, and let's work on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Winteringham.
Could I follow up with that? I love those comments. Actually, there was a lot of good comments out there. Now, I actually went to the Trump inauguration not because I'm totally in love with Trump, because I understand that it's a historical moment. Nothing like this has happened before, where someone has actually taken on the deep state and is actually shrinking the corruption size of the federal government. But let's go back to what you're talking about. When my parents came to Canada, both of them were immigrants. They bought a house in Mississauga in 1961 for under $30,000. Maybe back in 61, that was a lot of money, but it's nothing like what they're selling for on that street today, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 million. So it's absurd. We've let inflation get out of control. It's our own government that's caused this problem by allowing international speculators to use Canadian residential real estate as a toy to gamble with and to launder money that's coming from fentanyl shipments from China. Well, not even China. The precursor chemicals are coming from China. They're making the fentanyl in Canada and sending it to the States. Now, we could have avoided this whole entire tariff issue if we had just agreed to better border security, arresting radicals. And they're arresting more people on the terrorist watch list coming from Canada into the U.S. than from Mexico into the U.S. That should frighten everyone in Canada. That should frighten us. And nobody's doing anything. It's our own government that caused this problem. We don't need to have a dispute with the US. We've allowed Canada to become a national security threat by allowing extremist ideologies to fundraise, to organize, and to send money for terrorism overseas. And the Canadian government knows about it, and they've done nothing. Ever since the Air India bombing, we've turned our eye away. None of those people were held responsible.
Thank you, Mr. Bayer. Yes, thank you. Well, we've gone through all of the questions, and you guys did a really fantastic job at the end there. Did you want to add something, Mr. Winteringham?
Well, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for.
Oh, we're not done yet. We're not done yet.
All right.
So we got a little bit of time. I'm going to ask one follow-up question.
Let me build on that. What he's talking about, the border security issue. I mean, that's been going. That's one of those problems that took 20 years, 30 years to develop. Same thing that losing our manufacturing base. It wasn't overnight. It took time, and it just dragged on and dragged on. We haven't addressed it. That's the biggest problem. We need somebody. That's why the PPC is so important. We can actually, if one or two of us got into the parliament, we could raise these questions. None of the other 338 are doing it. It's just like the time they all clapped and applauded that Nazi. Don't they read history books? Don't they know who he was fighting for? Like, it's the same thing. They're so ignorant and they're so whipped. Every party's whipped. They have to vote the way they are. That's why PPC is important, because we can bring a conscience into there. We can actually do a course correction, a populist course correction, and it needs to happen soon, because we're going downhill. If not, we're going to become just another appendage of this world global neoliberal order, and we won't have our sovereignty anymore. I mean, we're barely hanging on to it as it is. And I find it odd that we used to be a post-nation state after Trudeau got elected. He bragged about we're a post-nation state and we're colonizers and white people are old stock Canadians. And all of a sudden, no, elbows up, guys. It's crazy.
Thank you, Mr. Winteringham. I'm just going to mute your mic. So one thing, I just want to bring up one of the users. He says, David Payne, wow, all the candidates are amazing. Thank you very much, David. He's right. You two are doing fantastic. We got a little bit of time. I'm going to ask one question. This isn't scripted. I'm going to give you a little bit longer. You can talk for 3 minutes if you want. We'll go with you, Mr. Bayer, first. The question is, what do you think? Like, just talk about the housing. What do you think is the root cause of the housing crisis? Why are the prices up?
Well, it's complex. It's not one simple thing. I think there's a lot of things going on. Supply and demand, obviously, we talked about the 5 million people that are scheduled to leave the country by the end of 2025. Now, with 5 million people left, what do you think would happen to the demand for housing? So the immediate solution, a quick solution, would be to get our population problem under control. But we have to have more transparency in terms of who are the foreign buyers of Canadian residential real estate. And you're going to find that there is a lot of foreign, the money laundering, they're putting their assets into Canada. They don't even care if they rent the house out. As long as they've got an asset, they consider it safe. It's offshore. It's not in China. The Chinese government can't seize it, or the Indian government can't seize it. We have to go back to fundamental principles if we want to solve these problems. And what are the legitimate functions of the federal government? And I'll tell you what I think they are. The fundamental things that we need the federal government for: national defense is 1, a national police force is 2, and a national court system is 3. In my opinion, everything else could be done by the provinces, by the municipalities, or better off by the individuals themselves and private organizations, voluntary, with coercion, right? As long as we have this massively centralized political power in Canada, we are going to have endless problems. They're going to get worse and worse. We need to radically decentralize political power in Canada. We have to take it away from the federal government, give it back to the people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bayer. Mr. Winteringham, same question to you. What do you think is the root cause of the housing crisis?
Mike, I nominate Michael Baer to become when we form government, I want him to be the federal minister for housing. Because yeah, that's a great answer. That's perfect. He knows, he's obviously studied in this area. Me, I think it boils down to two things. The international speculators, like you say, going along with raising property prices above, retail levels. And number three, of course, is the mass immigration. If you allow all these people to come in year after year after year, there's going to be a strain on housing, and that's going to drive the prices up. That's supply and demand, 101. But I do believe that this is also this has been done on purpose to achieve that goal I talked about, the World Economic Forum's goal of you'll own nothing and be happy. They want us all renting. They want us all stacked in apartments and renting, and not being able to realize an independent sovereign lifestyle inside an independent sovereign country. That's the whole thing. And so these prices are being...
You need financial independence. You need financial independence to be a sovereign individual, a sovereign person. So yes, you're 100% right. 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Bayer. But Mr. Winteringham, keep going, please.
Oh, I'm good. No, that's good. I was done anyway. That's okay. That's my my assessment. I really believe it's being done artificially, and I believe it's being done maliciously. And the only way we're going to get back is by taking the power back. It's power to the people time, buddy.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Winteringham. Okay. So we're at the end of the episode, and we're going to go with Mr. Winteringham. I'll go to you first, and then you, Mr. Bayer. Just tell the audience why they should vote for you. Why should members in your riding vote for you?
People should vote for me because I know how to fix the problem, because I know what the cause of the problem, and the fixing of the problem is quite simple. It's just getting back your own power and bringing the power back to the people. That's quite it is. That's all it is. And I'm an advocate for that. I've been that way all my life, and I've seen it slipping away slowly. It started happening with the free trade stuff in the 80s and the 90s. And I've watched for 40 years this horror show go on, stripping our economic liberty, our civil liberty. That is the biggest thing. We got to stand up and fight. That's why freedom is essential. I stood up and I protested against the COVID tyranny. I was front and center. I lost my job because of it, but I kept going. I got 8 tickets for $50,000 from the government in Saskatchewan. And I kept going. It didn't matter what they did to me, because I believe that my cause is right. And I believe that the people I have studied throughout my life, the political heroes I've had, like Tommy Douglas and Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, and all these people that stood up for what was right and suffered the slings and arrows, but kept going, because that's what I believe in. I am not afraid.
Okay, we're back.
I'm not afraid. That's the biggest one. And I joined the PPC for one explicit reason, because Max Bernier, who runs the party and his platform, is all about freedom, liberty, respect, fairness, and individual sovereignty. And I find that very, very uplifting. And we got to get back to the idea of fraternity, liberty, and equality, because that's what made Western civilization so great. People talk about the slave trade and stuff like that. Well, guess who stopped the slave trade? England. And they were a Christian nation. They stopped the slave trade. Before that, slavery was a worldwide scourge in every religion, every culture. We can bring something that is important. We are the culture of the Renaissance, and we add that with our own unique Canadian bent. We can unite together. We can heal the pain of the past with the simple idea that there is no other way to go forward but progressing in a more just and in a more just society, because that's the grand sweep of history. Always does that. We're gonna have bumps along the way, but we can be better. And besides, we have no choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winteringham. Mr. Bayer, welcome back. Same question. Why should people in your riding vote for you, sir?
Well, there is a vote split. Yeah, you're either voting for a corrupt establishment party lobbyist, because the lobbyists are in control. If you vote the conservative or liberal, the MPs have no power. If you don't do what they're told, they're kicked out of the party. And all you're doing is voting for a lobbyist, or maybe a foreign government, maybe the Chinese Communist Party. Or you could vote for an actual real person that's going to fight for individual freedom, personal responsibility, fairness, and respect. I mean, there's beautiful words that I heard from my other guest here. We need to return Canada to a place that embraces Western civilization values. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association. All of these things are critically important. We're failing as a society right now. And I believe it is on purpose. It's our own government that is a clear and present danger to Canadians. And I wish Canadians would wake up. It seems like they're asleep. They don't recognize the danger. They're afraid of the wrong things. You don't need to be afraid of the boogeyman. The boogeyman is right here. It is the federal government, right? So we as Canadians, we need to stand up and say, no, we've had enough of it. We want reforms. And PPC is the only party that's going to do them. You know, the Conservatives are going to do the same thing as the Liberals have done, except slower, right? They're just going to slow walk it. And I'm predicting that we will see maybe a slight Conservative majority. I think the polls and the media are completely lying. They're just doing a psyop on the Canadian public. With the size of the crowds that the Conservatives are getting, I think the Conservatives will probably win a minority. I hope and pray that the PPC gets a few seats. I hope we have a strong showing, but at least if we get a few seats, we can get our voice into the public. The media can't ignore us as easily because there's a total media blackout on People's Party candidates. Even our leader can't get into the leadership debates. It's a travesty. The same people that are crying about threats to democracy are the ones that are silencing their political opponents and arresting them. I mean, it's absurd. It's insanity. So wake up, Canadians. I thank Payman for getting the message out, and I thank the PPC, and I thank Maxime Bernier and all the other candidates. I love you guys.
Right back at you, Mr. Bayer. Mr. Winteringham, Mr. Bayer, thank you very much for coming on, and best of luck to your campaign, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you both. Thank you very much, Payman. I appreciate it, and it's been wonderful.
Bye, Michael. Bye, RB.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
All right. So, RB, Michael, I know you guys can still see me. I dropped you guys down. I'm going to take a quick break. We got panel 3 coming up. I've never done this where I feel like a radio jockey. I'm going to put some music on. I'm going to find the cheesiest song I can find. Maybe the Hamster Dance. Was it this one? No idea what that is. Please don't be. There we go. Enjoy the song, guys. And that song. Oh, we got people here. Wow. Bad time for my computer to freeze. Hey, Fiona.
Hey Pippin, how are you?
I'm good. Sorry you had to endure my cheesy music. I was just taking
No
a little
worries.
break. So we've never actually met before, even though we're close.
We met at the event, right?
That's true. I regretted saying that the moment it came out of my mouth. I have a big problem with faces and
Yeah, no
names and
worries.
facts.
Yeah, but only once, I think. In Langley, the
The
one
Ian
that
Kennedy thing?
Max came out, I think.
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Uh, how's the weather over there in Vancouver?
It's raining right now. Yeah, it
Yeah,
rains pretty often. Yeah. Cold.
same here.
Yeah. You're in
West Vancouver.
West Vancouver. Okay. Yeah. I just got back from Texas last week.
Wow. So how was the freedom down there?
I thought it was really funny that there's a lot of like stores, right, that have a sign that says, from this point forward, you cannot like, carry any concealed weapons or right. So you don't really see that in Canada, right? But yeah.
Goddamn liberals, they don't like concealed carry. Yeah. I was down in Florida. I was in someone's truck. It was a real estate agent. We're just going around. There's all these like shotgun shells, where your coffee cup's supposed to. I'm like, bro, what's going on here? It's like, well, welcome to Florida, son.
Yeah, I hear like someone said that they actually saw people just selling guns on the street. I don't know if that's true or not, but
They sell guns everywhere. Like, if you go to Montana, there's a tourist shop that sells like
Mhm.
novelty T-shirts and guns,
Mhm.
but they wouldn't sell me one.
It's definitely a different culture, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have an event on the next 14th. Yeah, 14th.
Max is coming out, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I don't know where these people are. There's supposed to be 5 people on this panel, 6 including me. We'll give them a few more minutes.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's going to be you're going to get my full undivided attention.
How are your last two? Or last? Yeah, you had two before this, right?
Yeah. So the first one, there were 4 candidates,
Mhm.
and it was good. The last one was 2, also good.
Mhm.
This one's 1. Could be could go either way.
Are these uploaded to YouTube or is it just
Oh, this is all live. Actually, this is being recorded right now because
okay?
this is one long stream. That's why I had the music on. I had to do something
Yeah.
while I went and got a glass of water.
Do you also upload them on YouTube after or?
Oh, it's automatically uploaded to YouTube. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. You
What is
got
your
confirmed,
writing?
right? Yeah, Vancouver Kingsway.
Which is
Mm,
oh, here we go. It's
basically,
okay.
yeah.
We got some of our guests. Hello, Mr. Hoffman. Hello, Miss Peterloo. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Yes, hi.
Hi, Clara. So we should have 2 more panelists, if I'm not mistaken. Thomas Fanjoy and Patricia Conlon. If they show up, they show up. So I'm just going to go through the format. I'm just going to ask everyone mute their microphones,
Yeah.
please. There we go. So the format, did I do it wrong? It'll be like this. So when I'm talking, whoever's talking will be in here. A couple of things. The purpose of this, there's two reasons that I'm hosting these: to give the candidates experience based on what questions they're going to expect, because these questions are not going to be sort of libertarian, laissez-faire, classical conservative questions. They will come from far from the far left, far from left field. And so if anyone gets upset, the questions that I'm asking, they are specifically designed to be left liberal, because those are the questions you're going to get. That's the first thing. The second thing, we have a 90-second, I'm putting a 90-second limit on how much you can talk. That's not because I like interrupting people, but that's typically how much time you get in these debates that you're going to be participating in. So I'm going to bring you guys one by one. I'll change the order so it's not just one person that's getting screwed over being the first one every time. To get things started, and also once you're done talking, I ask that you please mute your microphones, and I'll remind you if need be, or just manually mute them. So we're going to go with Fiona, Clara, and then Todd. If you could just introduce yourself, you have about 90 seconds. Introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit about you and where they can learn more about you. Go ahead, Fiona.
Hi everyone, my name is Fiona Wang and I'm running in the Vancouver Kingsway riding. This is my first time running, but I'm really excited to gain some experience. And the reason why I'm running is because I am an immigrant. My father came to this country standing for a lot of Western values, such as democracy, freedom, the right to, or the freedom to express yourself, right? And I just see a lot of that has been just eroding away, and I think we're at a dangerous place in Canada, and I think it's because of my father's influence too that I'm very passionate about this topic. Yeah, so I really hope that we can unite Canadians to building a better Canada, instead of this divisive culture that we're seeing right now. Yeah. Okay. So I hope to have your support, and you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on X. You can also email me. My email address is just my name, fiona.wang@teamppc.ca. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Wang. Ms. Peterloo, on to you. Could you tell the audience a little about yourself, please?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Payman. It's great to be here. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Clara Peterloo. I am in the Lethbridge riding in Alberta. I work as a business broker and help businesses transition over to new ownership with a focus on Main Street businesses. And over the last 10 years, I have seen an assault on small business from the federal government. And I'm just really tired of staying quiet about it. The federal government was more than happy to close down independent businesses while the Walmarts of the world got to stay open. And that definitely had a drastic and dramatic impact on small businesses who had to close their doors permanently. So the reason why I'm here today is to give a voice to small business owners who feel left behind and betrayed by their government who's always tooting about how the small businesses are the backbone of the economy. But yet, they're always the first ones to have their doors closed, the first ones that have to, deal with all of these, even like that GST holiday, like Walmart can absorb that, but small business owners had to spend extra hours and hours of administration tasks to figure out this whole GST holiday thing. So again, here to hopefully voice the concerns of small businesses and to also give a voice to our community.
Thank you, Ms. Peterloo. And finally, to you, Mr. Hoffman, if you could just tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. Todd Hoffman here from the riding of Pontiac Kitsitsibi. It's a rural riding in Western Quebec. So the interesting thing that we have here is being on a frontier with another province. We're right on the border of Ontario, and some of the big issues here have been interprovincial trade barriers. We've had interprovincial trade barriers here for my entire life. The population here has advocated over the years at various levels to remove these barriers. And this was the big attraction for me with the People's Party of Canada. It was one of our original 16 planks in our platform was the elimination of interprovincial trade barriers. In my business life, I had a construction materials company, and we were restricted from taking some of our materials from Quebec over to Ontario. My second business that I have is a microbrasserie or microbrewery. And of course, we cannot take our product, our our alcohol, our beer from province of Quebec to
Mhm.
Ontario because of these barriers. My brewery in Quebec is only 16 kilometers from the frontier, but I cannot get into the LCBOs in Renfrew, Ontario, Pembroke, Ontario. In order for me to sell my beer into Ontario, I had to set up a second brewery in the province of Ontario. So why could I have invested that money in Quebec and created jobs within my own riding where I live? That's one of the reasons that I'm passionate about, but there's so many. Going back to Claire, the pandemic, for sure, having a brew pub, 2 brew pubs actually, they kept turning the mandates off and on like a light switch, in the toll that it took. Businesses that got caught up in the CERB that couldn't pay back their $40,000. We've seen so many restaurants close. So in a nutshell, that's it. There's lots to talk about, but that's it in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hoffman. If you could mute your microphone, please. In my haste, I forgot to mention, at the 90-second mark, I'll do, if someone is talking at the 90-second mark, I'll do that. That's just a visual indication that your 90 seconds are up, and then I'll then politely start interrupting you.
Sorry, can you do that again? I missed it. What was the visual cue?
So if you're talking like this, you're answering your questions. You
Yeah.
get to the 90-second mark.
Yeah.
I'm going to replace myself
Oh.
with yourself, so you'll see me bigger. That's your visual cue to start wrapping it up. Otherwise, I'll start interrupting. Again,
perfect. Got it.
I'm not doing it to make life difficult, but this is what you have to expect in the debates. So we're going to go on to the actual pre-scripted questions. They've been shared with you. They've been shared with the audience. Ms. Wang, we're going to go with you first. My memory is horrible, so let me just bring this up. The first question, Ms. Wang, what will the People's Party do to address the rise in racism in Canada?
Okay, thanks, Payman. Yeah, I really like this question because my undergraduate degree was in sociology, which is more of a liberal arts, right? I guess it would be more of a left-leaning study. And then I did my master's in criminology and social justice, right? Which is also very left-leaning. But I think we have to start by treating everyone as equals, right? And that means that we provide equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome, right? So someone should have the opportunity to apply, as a flight attendant, right? It doesn't matter their gender, but can they do the work, right? We're not aiming that, we need this many flight attendant that's male or that's female or that's a certain race, right? We don't want equality of outcome. We want equality of opportunity, right? So giving everyone the opportunity regardless of their race or gender. I think it's also important to appreciate how far we've come as a society, right? Like for example, slavery ended in Canada in 34, with the Slavery Abolition Act which was enacted in 1833. So we have come very far, right? We've progressed a lot as a society, and I think we should celebrate that too. So avoid divisive identity politics, because I think that fuels resentment instead of uniting us as a nation. We want to promote equal policies, right, that ensure equality of opportunity, not outcome. To see people as individuals rather than their group, and encourage open dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wang. We'll go to you, Ms. Peterloo. Same question. What will your party do to deal with the rise of racism in Canada?
Yeah, of course. A really great question. And I think this is a strong platform on behalf of the People's Party of Canada, and that is to end multiculturalism in Canada. I grew up in Montreal, a very multicultural city, in the 80s and 90s. There was very little racism that I noticed within my, limited view of the world at that time. I went to school with all different people from around the world. We all got along. Other than just typical teenager drama, but we all got along and shared meals together, ate lunch together, went to each other's houses for dinners. And then here we are all these years later, and it feels like multiculturalism has created tribes that live next door to one another. And when you have a society that is tribes based on ethnicity and religion living next door to other tribes based on different ethnicities and religions, well, what ends up happening is, the tribes start to fight. And I think it's important that we have a Canadian identity where we're all connected through our Canadian identity. So we have something that we can be proud of and that binds us together as a country, as a people. And I believe that that's something that's lacking today. I know that this election now, because of the U.S. tariffs, now everybody's all kumbaya Canada. But it wasn't that long ago where Canadians were exceptionally divided surrounding transgender issues as well as COVID. So they divided us when it suited them. Now they've united us because it's an election. Oh, there goes a motorcycle. So yeah, it's a beautiful day here in Lethbridge. So yeah, I think it's important for a Multiculturalism Act to be abolished and for a special interest group rights to be abolished. We are all equal under the law, but yet very different. And it's okay to celebrate those differences, but equality and Canadian identity, I think, will help a lot in resolving the racism in the country.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peterloo. Mr. Hoffman, on to you. Same question. There is a rise of racism in Canada. What is your party going to do to deal with it?
Okay, thank you. Well, I concur very much what Claire has said, that's for sure. I can expand on it, but not so much in my riding. Being in a rural riding, we don't have very many ethnic groups here at all, very, very few. But that's not to say that nationwide that there isn't a problem or a perceived problem. For sure, the Multiculturalism Act of 1985 has to be ended. It was fine maybe a few decades ago to say that Canada was a mosaic and not a melting pot. But what's happened with such a rapid and sudden influx of immigrants, it's just increasing the ghettoization of these groups. They're coming in so fast that they're not fully getting integrated within Canadian society. So that's where the PPC would actually establish a Canadian's value test. We'd have to be much more stringent on integrating these people and educating these people as to what really Canadian values are, the values of Western civilization, which is basically the fundamental rights of equality of the sexes, democracy, freedom of religion. Some of these people that come over do have cultural baggage with them. They do have some hatreds, and what's happening is, as based on examples in Brampton, we have two ethnic groups that are at each other's throats. We've seen it in downtown Toronto, two ethnic groups clashing with each other. So we definitely have to try to get rid of the ghettoization. And why the ghettoization is becoming more pronounced is because the influx is so quick. So for sure, reduce immigration, for sure, put an end to the Multiculturalism Act of 85, and for sure establish a more stringent Canadian values test. This way, the people will be more integrated in Canadian society.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hoffman. I'm going to ask an unscripted follow-up question. We'll start with you, Ms. Wang. Just for the audience to know, it doesn't mean that I actually believe these questions. These are devil's advocate questions, so I don't want somebody showing up at my house with a baseball bat calling me a sellout. Ms. Wang, your party speaks very fondly of
assimilation, but what gives the government a right to tell people how to behave, which is what assimilation is? How do you defend that position?
I think I would like to give a personal example because I think that actually ties into the bigger picture as well. So, for example, growing up, so I came to this country with my family. Neither of my parents spoke any English, and they still don't, and they've been here over 20 years, right? So that sounds pretty scary, right? But because there's such a big Chinese community and culture in Vancouver, she never really had to feel the need to learn English. But that's been difficult, right? And the government never forced her to assimilate into the Canadian culture, right? But so she was able to speak, Mandarin here her whole life. She never had to learn English, but now, after 20 years, it's been very difficult for her to, let's say, get a job in Canada, right? Or even communicate with her, two sons. My two younger brothers, they're born here and they don't speak Chinese very well. So I don't think that we should force anyone, right, to assimilate into the culture or to learn the language if they really don't want to. But it's definitely encouraged. It'll make life a lot easier for them and for their community. And I also believe that if you're coming into this country, I assume that there's something here that you value, right? Maybe that you're missing back home, right? So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me for them not to learn the language. Like I guess I would like an open dialogue, right? I would like to learn why they may not want to learn our language, or to adapt to some of the ways that we do things here. And yeah, I would like to see where that discussion goes, because I'm open to learning from their perspective as well.
Thank you, Ms. Wang. Ms. Peterloo, same question to you. How do you defend assimilation?
Well, I don't think that it's so much assimilation. I think that it's about having a national identity as Canadians. We need to really lean into that. People coming to this country have not been screened through the mass immigration process, and it's very challenging for someone with, with very strong Islamic belief systems where women are considered property and multiple wives are considered an honor. That does not go well with our culture here in Canada, and those types of religious practices don't belong in Canada. And so there's certain areas where, yes, the freedom of religion is important, but when those religions clash with our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, there's a problem. So I think it's important for immigrants to be interviewed face to face before coming into the country to ensure that they're excited to be here, that their values align with Canada, and that they're want to be a part of our country. If they are here to, destroy us from within, I don't know that those are really great people to have in our country. I think it just makes sense to want to attract people who do value Canada and do see the possibilities and the potential for providing a safe environment for their kids, for their families, the right to clean water, good food. Like, these are all fundamental human rights that everyone should be entitled to. But however, coming in with your, cultural and religious bias is just turning Canada into ghettos, and I disagree with that.
Thank you, Ms. Peterloo. Mr. Hoffman, same question. What is your argument in defense of assimilation?
Well, we want every immigrant that comes to this country to succeed. And in order for them to succeed and to contribute to this country, they have to become a culture to the country. The more that they assimilate, the more that they become encultured, the more that they can contribute to the economy of the country and to the well-being and defense of the country. In some respects, I have been an immigrant within this country. I was born in the province of Ontario. I was educated in Ontario, and I was a unilingual Anglophone, moved from Ontario to Quebec. But for me to succeed in Quebec, I had to become assimilated somewhat into the Francophone culture, into the Quebecois culture. So I had to learn French, and without that, I would not have succeeded in business in Quebec. I'm functionally bilingual, but it's to our benefit and it's to their benefit to assimilate and to acculturate. It's only helping the country all around by doing that, plain and simple.
Thank you very much, sir. We're going to go to the next question, and we're going to start with you, Ms. Peterloo. And the second question is, what is the People's Party's strategy to combat the climate emergency?
Well, it's interesting that you use climate emergency. The People's Party of Canada does not believe in climate alarmism and the fear indoctrination that the planet is dying. We do not believe that people are parasites of the planet. That goes against our vision and values as a party, where we believe in fairness, respect, individual freedom, and personal responsibility. We are here for life on Earth, and it's a blessing, a gift to be here. We are not here as we're not destroying the planet like everybody is yelling from the rooftops. And it's just another reason to, tax people out of pocket. We are really being silenced, and our choices have been completely taken away from us because we are overtaxed, leaving less money in our pockets. I think it's much better for for the carbon tax to be removed through the entire supply chain, from seed right through to consumer products. The tax needs to be eliminated, and that'll give Canadians more money in their pocket to decide to what they will with it. If I have more money at the end of the month, at the end of the year, maybe I'm going to decide to put solar panels on my house. Maybe I'm going to decide to do a rooftop garden. Like, I'll make the decision myself. We're tired of the government telling us what to do all the time.
Thank you, Ms. Peterloo. Mr. Hoffman, same question to you, sir. What is your party going to do to combat the climate emergency?
Well, I agree very much with Clara. I don't like the premise of the question either, saying that there's an emergency. Basically, the People's Party believes that it's up to the individual to be responsible when it comes to the climate, not to the climate, but to actually the environment. Government regulations, government mandates, government dictates, basically government shaming, it's not the answer. It's up to the individual. If the individual is given the power themselves, they'll make responsible decisions. I'll give you an example here. So with all these election signs going up, we have Liberals who are always preaching about one-use plastic, single-use plastics, get rid of plastic straws, get rid of plastic straws. Meanwhile, they have the most core plus signs up. They're using tie wraps, 4-foot-long tie wraps. I've calculated out in our riding alone, they've used 80 pounds of tie wraps. 80 pounds of tie wraps probably equals about several thousand straws, single use. Tie wraps that are made in China. I elected for my campaign to use signage that was double-sided, smaller, and using H-stand clips that are manufactured in Canada and that are reusable, that if it's me or the next PPC candidate can do that. So if it's up to the individual will make fiscal choices that will conserve. We're basically a right-leaning party and we're conservationists when it comes to money. So if it's left to the individual, we'll make the right choices. We don't need the government to tell us what to do.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Ms. Wang, same question to you. What will your party do to combat the climate emergency?
Yeah, I echo what the other two candidates have said. I think our party believes that the narrative around climate change is often exaggerated, and I believe this as well. And I think it's to justify heavy-handed government control. That said, of course, we do care about the climate. We're not reckless, right? We do care about clean air, water, and soil. But our strategy focuses more on practical solutions, right? Local solutions over globalist mandates, right? Like the Paris Accord, which we would exit. We get rid of the carbon tax. It's a burden on Canadians. And I think a lot of times when we have all these government mandates to solve this climate emergency, it's the people in the lower class, right, that are suffering, right? Maybe less for the higher class, right, for the high income, but yeah, but people in lower class are definitely suffering from these mandates, and I think we, need to prioritize those groups as well, right? So yeah, instead we would invest more in measures like flood defenses or like wildfire prevention and support private sector innovations in cleaner technology, prioritizing clean drinking water, to even also like remote First Nations communities. The climate is always changing, right? So I think we need to acknowledge that, but we'd rather adopt smartly than chase unrealistic emission targets. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wang. Just a really quick follow-up question. Again, we'll go to you, Ms. Peterloo. Ms. Wang just mentioned the Paris Climate Accord. Global CO2 levels are rising. How does your party justify withdrawing from a climate accord, the Paris Climate Accord, which is designed to lower and reverse that historical abnormality and increase in CO2 levels?
Well, I think it's important to talk with a lot of different scientists. Of course, I am not a scientist. I'm a citizen of Lethbridge. The reason why I agree with leaving the Paris Accord is because I believe that it's part of the global agenda, which is to, destabilize countries and to ensure that wealth flows up to the 5 or 3 richest families in the world. All of our resources used to flow to the King and Queen of England. Now they're all flowing to the WEF and the five family cabal that runs the world. But anyways, the Paris Accord is an accord that I believe is counter science. Like, there is scientific evidence out there. I believe the founder of Greenpeace Canada gave a rather extensive talk on this, about how looking at the CO2 emission data is currently only being reviewed for the last 500 years. But if you're able to look back 10,000 years, you could see that it's actually very much a cyclical pattern. Like, there have been times where the CO2 was actually higher and higher than it is now, 10,000 years ago than it is today. So if you're just looking at data, because nature obviously runs on its own timeline. So if you're just looking at a data that suits, a timeline that suits your argument, instead of looking at the data all the way back out, I think it's bias. And so leaving the Paris Accord will enable us to axe the carbon tax. So we cannot axe the carbon tax without leaving the Paris Accord first.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peterloo. Mr. Hoffman, same question to you. I honestly don't even remember what it was. Paris Climate Accord. How do you justify it?
Well, we don't need it. The problem is that there's too much CO2. Somebody has to do what the Liberals promised to do, and they didn't do it. Was plant 2 billion trees to capture that CO2. So by planting trees, we would get the job done. And you know what? The Liberals say we need a wartime effort to build all these new houses. How are we going to build all these new houses and strip our forests more? We got to plant trees. So definitely, we don't need to be part of any international agreement. We can do this ourselves on our own. We can demonstrate to the world without being involved in the Paris Accords that we're environmentally responsible within our own house. We shouldn't be taking the burden of India, China, all these emerging markets, emerging populations. We shouldn't take the brunt of it financially, and we shouldn't feel guilty about it because they're saying that we're one of the largest consumers in the world per capita. We can prove ourselves by being responsible, finishing the job that the Liberals said they would do by planting all these trees. And these trees are only the benefit to help reunite, especially in my riding, the forest industry. We've stripped so many trees here, and we have to go farther and farther back, many kilometers in the bush to get them, and it's just not feasible. So plant the trees, make more lumber to build these houses if we truly have a wartime effort. It's easy to say we're going to build houses. Where's all the lumber going to come from? Plant these trees, capture the carbon. We don't need international leaders in Paris telling us what to do. We can be responsible on our own. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hoffman. Ms. Wang, same question to you. I swear to God, I have Alzheimer's. There's something to do with Paris Climate Accords. How do you justify withdrawing from it?
So the PPC would justify pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. Several reasons. It's costly, it's ineffective, and we believe that it's not science-based. It's about control. So first off, I think the agreement's targets, like cutting emissions to some very arbitrary global standard, it's really ignoring the reality of our economy, right? Canada's a cold, vast country, and we rely on energy to heat our homes, move goods, and keep industries running. And the carbon tax and regulations tied to the Paris, it will really hit our workers, our farmers, right, and small businesses the hardest. And so it's jacking up costs without delivering measurable global impact. And the last time that I checked out, our emissions are a very tiny fraction, right? Maybe only about 1% or 1.6% of the world's total, right? While countries like China and India pumping out far more with little accountability. So it doesn't really make sense to me why Canadians should foot the bill for a plan that punishes us while letting bigger polluters off the hook. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not really about science, it's about control, right? So I think the government blindly follows, signing away our ability to make decisions that will fit Canada's unique needs. So we don't want the one size fits all approach, right? And we want to focus on what works here. So like practical measures, practical solutions, right? And finally, I would say that again, we do care about the climate and the environment that we live in, but we just don't really buy into the panic. And I think more discussion should be had on these topics.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wang. We're going to go to the next question, and Mr. Hoffman, you're going to be the first one for this one. What will the People's Party do to promote and push forward truth and reconciliation?
Again, the wording of that question is sort of awkward. My truth is different than your truth. Claire's truth is different than Fiona's truth. So there has to be some sort of a mutual starting point on this. It's a very complex question. It's historically based and it's ongoing. It's like the never-ending story in Canada. And arguably, there are forces out there that don't want it to end. There's forces that want to always be in a current state of dependency. So the People's Party would take the approach of, first of all, replacing the Indian Act. It's created a state of dependency on many reservations. We would also ensure that or promote that the concept of private property on reservations, that it's so much not communal or band owned. But for sure, we have to start a mutual starting point. There's sides there. What is the truth? We've seen a few years ago, what was the truth really on some of these graves? Some of them, we don't know. We don't know. So it's a complex issue, but for sure, we need a lot more oversight. $32 billion goes to this. What are the results? We're pumping billions and billions of dollars into this problem, and we're not generating results. Our government would be result-driven for sure. And the Aboriginal Native population in Canada is becoming smaller and smaller because as we're bringing in more immigrants, the actual...
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, it's okay. It's kind of tragic. You were answering it really well, but you went a little over time, so I had to cut you off. Thank you very much, Mr. Hoffman. Ms. Wang, over to you. Same question. What will your party do to push forward truth and reconciliation?
So our party, our stance is on emphasizing on fairness and respect, right, for all Canadians. So this includes Indigenous people as well. But we don't want to create any further or any new divisions between groups. We want to focus on practical improvements. That's definitely a word that I keep repeating, right, on all these issues, because I think a lot of these solutions that we have, it looks like a solution, but it's more of a band-aid, right, and it's not very practical. It's not very realistic. So PPC is the only party that actually, will put an effort to focus on practical and real solutions. So in this case, it will be like ensuring clean drinking water, better economic opportunities on reserves over like symbolic gestures, right, or endless commissions. So as I said earlier, we believe in equal treatment. So we would avoid policies that grant special status or privilege for them, because I think this actually perpetuates dependency. Our goal at the end of the day is definitely to empower Indigenous communities through education, infrastructure, access to markets, letting them thrive as equals in a united Canada. So that's what our party is really aiming for. Listening to their opinions, to their point of view, delivering results, and moving forward together, right, as a nation, but not dwelling on past grievances or too much of the past. Like, we definitely want to acknowledge the past, because history does matter. But what can we do going forward? Everyone working together.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wang. Ms. Peterloo, finally, same question to you. I didn't ask you, right?
No, not yet. I'm the last one on this question.
All
Yeah.
right. What will your party do to advance truth and reconciliation?
Yeah, well, I loved what Fiona Wang said. I couldn't agree more. It's about moving forward together. I think showing respect and honor for our Indigenous population, Inuit and Métis populations is important. That respect and honor is given. I think state, provincial, and federal apologies have been given. But currently, the way that it's being, currently the system that exists right now, I agree with Miss Wang. It does create a culture of dependency, on the reserves. Like, you cannot own your own home. Like, you don't own your house on the reserve. Like, it's just provided for you. And without that ownership, there's not really any sense of pride. And, a lot of these times these homes are, not very well cared for, but it's because of like the fact that there's no pride in ownership. So I think restoring land ownership and ownership on the reserves for them to govern themselves, just like any other city, town, village would govern themselves, is very important. So abolishing the Indian Act to do that, so that they have more resources available to them and also more economic prosperity as well. And I hope that in the future we are able to work together as Canadians for a prosperous future for everyone, and that our voices are no longer silenced, and that more choices are restored to each individual of Canada, and that includes our Indigenous people as well.
Thank you, Ms. Peterloo. I'm not going to ask any unscripted follow-up questions because we have a question from the audience. So I want to go through the last question and then we'll get to that question. Ms. Wang, we're back to you. So the final scripted question is, with the Trump administration drifting towards the far right, how can we keep U.S.-style politics outside of Canada?
A great question, because I think this really ties into I guess the passion that has drawn everyone together to the PPC, right? Because PPC is about Canadian solutions for Canadian problems, right? We're really cautious of importing any foreign political playbook, whether it's Trump or anyone else. So to keep our politics distinct, we double down on sovereignty, prioritizing Canada's interests over globalist or American influences, right? Um, our party also rejects divisive culture wars, which we see creeping in from both left and the right, right? So we want to focus on issues that unite us, Canadians, such as affordability, freedom, and security, right? And I think these are the issues that we all care about as Canadians, no matter where you are located. We strengthen our national identity by promoting shared values and cutting reliance on foreign media narratives. Basically, we at the end we want less government overreach, and our party advocates for more individual liberty. It's not an issue of whether left or right. It's more about Canadian common sense, and that is something that the PPC has emphasized over and over again, right? Where this isn't like, this election is not about left or right. This is really about putting Canada's first, putting Canadians first, for once, because I think a lot of these, sometimes these bigger parties, or people that's been in politics for a long time, right? You do see some corruption happening, right? I think we are all aware of that. But yeah, but PPC really do want to put Canadians first, put Canada first, especially, we've seen in the last few years that Canada has not been doing so well. So
Thank you, Ms. Wang. Ms. Peterloo, same question to you. How do we stop U.S.-style far-right politics from coming into Canada?
That's a very divisive question. Way to separate the room. Well, first off and foremost, I would make a serious call out to Canadians to please, anger should not be directed at an individual. Stop directing your anger at Donald Trump and start directing your anger at the problem. And the problems here in Canada are massive. We need to talk about Canadian problems and stop talking about Donald Trump. Who cares? The tariffs that everyone's so upset about, really, honestly, it's just become a pissing contest at this point. Eventually, I know that it affects the economy. I know that it's going to hurt. But eventually what will happen is that somebody is going to say, you know what, we'll take away our tariffs if you take away your tariffs. So this tariff war is a very short-term war that will end quickly, in my opinion. It's not going to stick around for long, but it's here right now, and it's very inflammatory, and everybody's hating Donald Trump. But I think what you should be hating more on is are the problems, of course. And so a problem here that we should be angry about is that, we set up a trade relationship with only one partner. If you owned a business and you only had one supplier, and then your supplier was like, I'm not going to supply to you anymore. That's kind of on you as a business owner. You made a bad choice. Canada should be diversifying their trade partners, and we should have been doing that from the very start. But instead, we, put all of our reliance on the United States. So maybe that's our bad. We should have made better choices earlier in the game. But here we are, and I hope that this leads to interprovincial trade barriers being broken down after years of them being in place. And so, I think that our politics here in Canada are going to be ones of, of trust, generosity, personal freedom, and independent responsibilities. And that's what makes Canada great.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Peterloo. Mr. Hoffman, rounding off the final question, how do we stop U.S.-style right-wing politics from coming into Canada?
Well, there's a question more pressing than that. The question is not the influence of American right-wing politics. The question is of Chinese and Indian influence within the Canadian electoral system. I think that's the more pressing question, and that's the question that we need to be asking ourselves. 80% of Canadians are very, very anti-Trump. The majority of Canadians are rejecting the American right and the far right. That's not the more pressing question. The question is other influence from other countries. So another thing too is, why are some leaders of, say, Mr. Poilievre of the Conservatives, why is he declining to take a security clearance? These raise these questions. There's so many questions that abound on this, but it's not a primary question on U.S. far-right influence. There's more pressing questions ahead of that need to be answered on who's influencing the Canadian electoral system.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hoffman. We're going to go, so we got 20 minutes left, and I'm just going to go to one of the audience questions. It is from Mr. Patrick Henry, who says, Mark Carney apparently has 3 passports. How many do you have, and what is your view on multiple citizenship holders sitting in Canadian Parliament? So I believe we're supposed to start with Claire, Ms. Peterloo. The question is to you, Ms. Peterloo. How many passports do you hold, and how many do you think, should multiple passport holders be allowed in Parliament?
Well, thanks, Payman, and thanks for that great question. Yeah, I hold 1 passport, and it's Canadian. I was born in Canada, and this is where I've lived and grown my family. Having 3 passports to 3 countries, wow, that sounds pretty amazing. I just don't know where your loyalty would lie if you have three passports to 3 different countries. I don't know that it's necessarily like, how do you get a passport to another country? I'm not too sure how he got his British passport, or I don't know what his 3rd country passport is. But honestly, at the end of the day, I don't really care how many passports Mark Carney has. All I know is that he hasn't lived in Canada for 10 years, and he moved his company to New York, as well as the 620 jobs with it. I also know that his company owns the largest pipeline in North America, and I also know that his company is responsible for deforesting the Amazon. So this hypocrite can stick it and doesn't belong in our Parliament.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peterloo. Mr. Hoffman, same question to you. How many passports do you hold, if you feel comfortable answering that, and what's your views on that?
I only hold 1. I was born and raised here. It's not a priority for me, or I don't think it's much of an issue or concern. We've had several prime ministers that have had multiple passports or a couple passports. But there is a problem with this. We have many Canadians, probably several million, that have at least a couple passports. And it always gets us into predicament, whether it be Sudanese Canadians or Lebanese Canadians. Some of these people that have multiple passports are actually spending 50% of their time more outside of Canada. But then whenever something happens, like in the Middle East, we have to go and we have to be basically the firemen to go over there and to evacuate them and get them out at a great deal of expense. Last example of this was in Sudan, when the civil war over there was, I believe, a year and a half ago, when we had to evacuate many Sudanese Canadians from Sudan. There were multiple Canadian Sudanese citizens, and the Canadian military, CSOR didn't want to go. They were understaffed, so they were going to send over a company from the RCR, the Royal Canadian Regiment, and they didn't even have sufficient gear to go over there to evacuate these people. They didn't have night viewing devices. They had to beg, borrow, and steal it from other militaries. So the problem is with Canadians having multiple almost identities, passports, we have to be on the hook to get them out of trouble. And that's a bill of expense. And I mean, when it comes to that, we should be charging Canadians for that. If we have to go and rescue them, if they have a Lebanese passport, and if it's Canadian military, Canadian government that's taking them out, they should be billed for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hoffman. Ms. Wang, final question to you. I forget the question. It's been a long day. I hope you remember. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a Canadian passport as well. It's the only passport that I hold. So in terms of the PPC stands when it comes to multiple citizenship holders in the parliament, we're skeptical of divided loyalties when it comes to representing Canadians. Anyone sitting in parliament should have a undivided commitment, right, to this country, its people, its interests, and its future. So holding citizenship in another nation kind of raises the question, right, where your true loyalty lies, especially in moments of crisis, right? When everything's going out, we're not really thinking about these issues or what passport you hold, right? But this topic does come up more and more when things are a bit shaky. So if you're making laws for Canada, your only passport should be Canadian. It's not about xenophobia. It's more about trust and accountability to the folks who elected you. But we're not saying that dual citizens cannot be patriotic or capable. But Parliament's different. It's the heart of our sovereignty, right? So when you're shaping policies or voting on issues like trade or immigration, right? Even this perception of conflict of interest could undermine public confidence. Um, and you can look at it this way, right? If a crisis hit between Canada and another country, right, where an MP holds citizenship, could they decide impartially? We don't really think that's a risk worth taking. So we push for a rule that MPs renounce their foreign citizenship before taking office. It's already a requirement in places like Australia, and it works. They've got a parliament that focuses on one nation's priorities. So Canada should expect the same, right? Freedom and fairness means that ensuring our leaders are all in for Canada, not hedging their bets elsewhere.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wang. We are at the end of the show, so I was hoping to sign off if you three could tell your voters in your riding why they should vote for you. We'll go with you, Mr. Hoffman. I'm going to give you guys a little more latitude. We're not going to try to keep it under 3 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I believe that the voters or the citizens of my riding of Pontiac, Kitson, Sibi should be voting me, but more importantly, voting PPC is we have a lot of answers to the problem, a lot of planks in our platform that apply to here. As mentioned earlier, elimination of the trade barriers. Being again on a frontier region, trade barriers have affected the cross flow of meat, the cross flow of alcoholic beverages, labor mobility, so many things, accreditation, certifications. So these trade barriers have to be eliminated for sure. They should have been eliminated a long time ago. Another reason is my riding has a very predominant Anglophone population. So we are the party of freedom of expression, free speech. Within this province, we have the CAC, which is a quasi-separatist government, which is curtailing English language minorities with Bill 96. So I, as your MP, would strongly work with my provincial counterpart, my provincial MNA, to work to get this repealed. Another thing is I would strongly advocate that there be no more mandates in the future. We all live by that. The government wants us to forget about it. The other major parties want us to forget about it, but we're still feeling the impacts of it. I'll always be a voice to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Those would be the three main things that I would be working on for the constituents of Pontiac, Kitsissibi. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hoffman. Ms. Wang, why should the members of your riding vote for you?
Because I'm here to put Canadians first. As your PPC candidate, I'm not tied to the old establishment parties that keep recycling the same promises to you, right? While your cost of living skyrockets, housing slips out of reach, right? And our streets feel less safe. I'm running because I see the real issues that you all face every day. And I've got the guts to tackle them head on with common sense solutions. The Vancouver Kingsway riding is over 54% immigrants, and there are hardworking people, right, who chose Canada for a better life. I get that. So I want to also push to reduce immigration to sustainable levels. We're not anti-immigration. I'm an immigrant, right, and I'm in PPC. But it's definitely about putting Canadians first. It's about putting you first, right? Immigrants here as well, right? I've also actually volunteered at Together We Can Addiction Recovery Center, which is a addiction recovery center in Kingsway. So I'm also really worried about the overdose crisis, and our community is losing too many to drugs. And the current approach, handing out needles without real solutions, isn't working. I'll fight for tougher enforcement on dealers, better treatment options, and focus on getting people back on their feet, right? Not enabling their addiction. It's not really about politics. It's about saving lives here, right on our streets. The last part I want like to emphasize is on freedom. You got a right to speak your mind without fear of censorship or woke backlash, right? Whether you're East Asian or European or South Asian, East Asian, whatever your background is, but your voice matters, and the PPC and I will defend that. So and no compromises. Big governments too busy telling you how to think, but I'm here to make them back off and let you live your own life, which is I think what everyone wants to do at the end of the day, right? We all just want to live our lives. We don't want people to tell us what we should find offensive, right? It's like when you see social media companies censoring certain people, right? I don't want someone telling me what I should find offensive or how I should think, right? I want to be able to think for myself, right? So Vancouver Kingsway is a working class. There's a lot of services, retail, manufacturing, and I think everyone feels the pain, right, of high taxes, high inflation, right? The PPC will work on getting rid of the carbon tax that's hiking your bills, right, for really no real gain. We will create more jobs, more opportunities, less government mandate, and that's my promise. I'm not a career politician. I'm someone that's I started my first job when I was 14, right? I've worked a lot of retail jobs, so I definitely understand how everyday Canadians feel. So if you vote for me, if you vote for the PPC, then you're really voting for a fighter who will put Vancouver Kingsway first. So let's take our country back, and one riding at a time.
Thank you very much, Miss Wang. Beautifully put. And finally, the lovely Miss Pidalou, you will round out this panel here for today. Why should the members of your riding vote for you?
Yeah, thank you, Payman. And yes, to the wonderful citizens of Lethbridge, you should vote for PPC because PPC has your back. We want to restore power to the people, and especially that is for us as Albertans and us here in Lethbridge. I believe that the PPC party is the best choice for Lethbridge because we are a farming community. So eliminating the carbon tax through the entire supply chain is a tremendous benefit for farmers. I know that the threat of the trade tariffs coming on is a huge deal, and it's really scary for a lot of people here in Lethbridge living so close to the border, and with Montana being one of our biggest trade partners, it's scary. But I promise you these trade wars will, I guess I can't promise, but I'm fairly certain that these trade tariff wars will not last. And by voting for the PPC party, we are more than going to make up for it with our plan to look at the equalization payments and ensure that that Alberta is not sending more money over to Ontario and Quebec than they need to. That formula needs to be examined, and the PPC, the first order of business is going to be to hire a commission to come up with a new formula that's fair and keeps more money in Alberta. We will relieve that or remove that ban on having oil tankers on the coasts, both Pacific and Atlantic, and welcome tankers to bring Canadian oil overseas. And we will also do everything that we can in our power to ensure that pipelines flow and that the construction of pipelines get the go-ahead federally to be able to get Alberta oil across the country. I think that these are really strong points for Albertans and also for here in Lethbridge. We need to keep more money here in Alberta for our province. It wasn't by opening interprovincial trade, we will be able to help our farmers trade amongst themselves, and by also removing the the dairy cartel, aka supply management of dairy, eggs, and poultry, will be able to free up trade amongst our provinces and as well as with the United States as a bargaining chip, because that's what they're most upset about, is not being able to sell their milk, cheese, eggs, and poultry here in Canada. Let's look at that and put that on the table to negotiate with the United States with regards to the tariffs. So I think having the PPC ready to hit the negotiation table with Trump to be able to have some pieces that we know that they're interested in and want to discuss, and coming with those pieces to the table to discuss them puts us in a much better position to negotiate than Carney or Polyev, who do not want to discuss the supply chain, the supply management currently, as far as I know. The other thing too, it wasn't that long ago that the Liberal government, silenced our voices regarding what was happening with transgender issues and pushing transgender issues on our children specifically. Of course, transgender and the LGBTQ community is definitely a group of wonderful individuals. However, forcing transgender issues onto our children and feeling silenced and powerless to do anything when the Bill C-16 was passed. Let's not forget that our voices as parents were silenced underneath the PPC. Those kinds of silly regulations will be removed. Children should not be taught about gender dysphoria, and parents and our communities have the right to help children, through these types of questions that they might have, but not to perpetuate these ideas into their minds. So don't forget that we were silenced. I felt uncomfortable speaking up as a parent, and I know a lot of people here in Lethbridge did too. So the PPC would definitely bring freedom, the freedom of speech, but also protect our kids in the future. So I think that these are some really big issues that affect Lethbridge, and I think that that's why you should vote for the People's Party of Canada.
Thank you, Ms. Pidalou. Thank you very much. I guess a big thank you to our panelists. I just wanted to quickly go to the audience comments. There's some very uplifting comments. So Peter Biker says, our wonderful PPC candidates are a breed apart from the selfish hustlers in Ottawa. Thank goodness. You're most welcome, Peter. Thank you for the kind words. Prairie, I see your question. We'll ask that in the next panel. The difference is astounding day and night, says David Payne. Go PPC.
Thank you, David.
Mr. Biker agrees with that. So on that note, I'd like to thank the panelists, Fiona, Clara, Todd. Thank you very much. Best of luck on your campaign.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Good to meet you.
You too. Bye.
Thanks. And thanks, Payman, for hosting.
Thanks.
No worries. Remove these guys. John, I see you down there. I just got to go downstairs and do something. I'm going to leave you with a nice, beautiful song. Let's see what we got. All right. Hey, John.
Okay, man, how's it going?
Pretty good. It's going. You?
I'm all right. I just came up. I just got back from door knocking. So less than an hour ago, grab the bites, and then yeah, jump on this. So it's been a busy day.
Yeah, I was doing. I was out getting signatures for one of your candidates, Esan.
Oh, oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can't spend the time, so that you can come out here and give some time is amazing.
No worries. No worries. Oh, we got Jim here. Oh man, Jim, you
Hi
look
guys.
serious, buddy.
Hi everybody.
Hey,
Hi,
Jim.
Jim.
What is? Um, let's see. Who else is? Are we waiting for anyone else? Panel 4. I guess it's just you two. Clara was in the last panel, so typically with two people, it's not as formal as the other ones, but I'll go over the procedure. Like I'll do this. I'll ask you guys to mute, and then I'll give the instructions. So the purpose of this for the audience, the purpose of this sort of mock debate is twofold. One, to get you candidates, us candidates, ready for the type of like left liberal questions that are going to come your way. No one's going to be like, "How awesome is the PPC?" Where so you got to get ready for the liberal questions. And secondly, I'm enforcing a strict 90-second rule because people have a tendency to ramble, myself as well. So
Yeah.
here's how it's going to work. I'll say, John, I'll ask a question. What color is best? And then John is answering. And once he gets to 90 seconds, I'm going to do this where I take over the screen. That's a signal to him that his 90 seconds are up. I'll give him like
Okay.
5-10 seconds, and then I'll say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Congressman, please, your time is up.
Yeah, I like that.
Sure. And we have some pre-scripted questions. I'm going to ask you guys 4 pre-scripted questions. You know what they are. I might ask some follow-up questions for everyone. If something comes up from the audience, we'll get to those at the end. And there was one other main thing. Oh, I'll switch it up. So like we'll start with John, but then the next question we'll start with Jim, and then back to John, so one guy doesn't get shafted. Any questions?
No?
All
That
right.
sounds good. Yeah.
So without further ado, and by the way, I'm so exhausted. Don't be surprised if I forget the questions. I'm going to
Well,
ask you guys to. Sorry, John. I'm going to ask you guys to mute your mics, please.
How do we do that?
It's should be a button down there.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Mike.
There we go. And the first one's really easy. We'll start with you, John. Can you please introduce yourself? I don't know, and maybe tell the audience why you're running. You got to unmute, buddy. Your campaign's not going good.
Hi everyone, my name is John Ede, and it's good to be reaching you from this very wet day from UBC campus. I'm running for the Vancouver Quadra riding. A bit about my background: originally a chemical engineer, 20 years supply chain management and commercial banking out of Nigeria and West Africa. I worked across 3 continents in the past 20 years. And what made me to run is the impact that I saw the COVID era have on our democracy was a light switch for me to say we have to step into the ring and help to right this ship of the country. I came in from Nigeria, and I'm well versed with the signs of a repressive and undemocratic state. And imagine that I escaped a fire room. I'm seeing smoke pop up in different corners of in the Canadian government and democratic sphere. And so I'm running to ensure that we can keep conversations straight, introduce some leadership into our polity and our governance, and try to hand over power to the people who ultimately reserve the rights to direct how they are led and how they are governed. And so that's why I'm running. My platform, among other issues I'm passionate about, is that I'm running to reaffirm our democracy. It's I think is the bedrock and the most robust framework we have to administer our social contract as free individuals whose voice and votes and aspirations count equally amongst the population. And so I look forward to this conversation, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Boutsakis. Same question to you, sir, if you could introduce yourself.
Okay. Payman, thanks for having me on. Nice to meet you, John. My name is Jim Boutsakakis. I'm running for the People's Party in Hamilton East, Stony Creek. I ran in 2021 in Toronto. I'm a business owner from Mississauga, and I joined the party during COVID when we all saw what was going on. I mean, things didn't make sense. Being politically inclined, a student of history, I could see things, and you know, my job as running would be more to wake people up and wake Canadians up to the dangers we face as free citizens. Our country, our democracy has been usurped by, let's not be coy, a globalist elite that sees our freedoms as impediments to their total control. Total control meaning, they're going to implement digital currencies, they're going to implement carbon footprints, 15-minute cities. So as a father of two young children, I just decided I was going to join the party and help wake people up and try to save the country that I love and I grew up in.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boutsakakis. We're going to head over to the questions. And I guess the first one is going to go to you, Mr. Boutsakakis. Let me just bring it up since my memory is a little horrible. What will the people's, again, for the audience, I don't want to get hate mail. I don't want people to think I've lost my mind. These are devil's advocates questions. They're specifically designed. Doesn't mean I agree with them. Mr. Boutsakakis, what will the People's Party do to address the rise in racism in Canada?
I reject that premise that Canada's even racist. Canada's not a racist country. We are the world's largest multicultural country. We are the world's most welcoming country. Canada's known the world over as the kindest country. This constant narrative about racism and things that trying to correct wrongs from centuries ago is a narrative that serves to divide and conquer for our elected officials that stand to benefit with this. I mean, there's complicity with the media. Corporations are all in on it. It's literally fascism, and we're led to believe that one of the biggest multicultural countries in the world is now the most racist, and we've committed genocide of Native peoples. It's a complete lie. Canada's not a racist country, full stop.
Thank you, Mr. Boutsakakis. Mr. Eady, same question to you. What's your party going to do about the rise of racism in Canada?
Well, I think Jim has hit the nail square on the head, but I'll go a little bit academic on what Jim has said. First of all, is that who says Canada is racist and that the experience is on the rise? Let me speak as an immigrant. Racism, if we try to define it, is just ill treatment or discrimination or bias against an individual based on their race. And I like to say that racism is just it's a distant cousin to other kinds of discrimination, like tribalism or religious bigotry. Personally, I've had more discrimination and abject treatment from my fellow countrymen in Nigeria than I've had of other people in Canada. So the question is, are we counting the right thing? I do not think that Canada is racist in the least bit. Jim has made a good point. We're a multicultural society. Definitely there will be expressions of curiosity amongst the people that come from different races put together in the same place. And so I think that what is required, if I have to give a direct answer to that question, is my party will engage in a very elaborate re-education on the grassroots level to make people understand, the characteristic and the character and the culture of Canada. And so, if people understand um, that nuance, then it doesn't seem as if we have a big racism problem. We just have a growing population, and people are allowed to be curious about people who do not look like them or have their same cultural or historical context. And I think that's healthy to drive community and have different parts of the community actually come together to work. So re-education, a redefinition, and how people to understand that Canada holds topmost among everything else the promotion of equal rights among the population. That's what my party will do.
Thank you, Mr. Eady. And as I mentioned, I'm extremely tired. I had an out of body experience there. I didn't realize you were not fully centered. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mr. Boutsakakis, Mr. Eady, if you could mute your microphone, please. Mr. Boutsakakis, I noticed that you're having trouble unmuting. From now on, I'll mute and unmute you. So I guess you're on your phone.
Okay. All right.
So I have a follow-up question on the issue of racism. Your party, the People's Party, is very opposed to immigration to the point where your leader has suggested that we should have a moratorium. How do you reconcile those two, claiming that you're not racist but also opposing immigrants?
Oh, to me, one is not connected to the other. I mean, we have social, our welfare system is crashing, our health system is crashing. We have a housing crisis. We have rampant crime, poverty. Um, Looking at immigration, which is one of the biggest causes of this, and it's not racist at all. I mean, just because you want a moratorium on immigration doesn't make you a racist. You just look to get your house in order. If we specifically said we're not going to be accepting immigrants from this country or this region or this race, that could be considered racist. But when you're asking for a moratorium on immigration to fix our failing state, that's not racist. Everything seems to be racist with the media today. What color socks are you wearing? Oh, you're a racist. Everything is racist, Payment. It's a narrative they're going to push and push until people just, have had enough. And I've certainly had enough. Everything is racist.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eady. I'm going to put the same question to you. Your party is officially opposed to they want a moratorium on immigration. How do you reconcile that with a country as diverse as Canada?
Um, I think it's a very sound economic and social response to evolving infrastructural sufficiency of Canada for my party to be asking for a moratorium on immigration. So let me state the obvious. The PPC, the People's Party, is not anti-immigration. The party is um, pro or proactive immigration policy that balances our current economic situation with our long-term needs for social and economic sufficiency. And so I'll answer this question with an anecdote. The city I last worked in Nigeria is Lagos State, which I think it's touted as the most populous city in all of Africa. At some point in the past, between 2015 and 2017, I believe, the Lagos State government actually tried to deport non-indigenous or not properly registered residents in the state, Nigerians out of the state. The reason is simple. Overcrowding is a problem. We have slums and cities built under bridges. We've had cities built on drainage systems, and Lagos State has a perennial flood issue. The point is this: infrastructures will eventually be overloaded until they fail if the flow of individuals to a certain geographic economic unit is not controlled, balanced with the provision of such infrastructure and the influx of the right amount of combination of skills and requirements that particular geographic definition requires. So that is what my party is about. Long term, we want Canada to be able to sustain the level of immigrants that will benefit Canada in the long run.
Thank you very much. We're going to go on to the next question, and Mr. Edie, you're going to. This one's going to go to you. What is the People's Party's strategy to combat the climate emergency?
The strategy is simple. We have more conversations across all boards of professionals and people who should know to identify what the real issue and what the real risks are. Right now, the prevalent understanding from the liberals and conservatives is that the CO2 is a poisonous gas and it should be cut to a certain level. That position might be held by one class of scientists globally, certainly supported by the IPCC. But there are other knowledgeable, globally known scientists that feel differently. My party's intervention will be to expand the conversation so that we know more and exactly what the issue is, and then balance our economic response with keeping Canada's economy well diversified and robust enough to sustain future generations, as well as deciding what the best response is environmentally. And so I don't believe that labeling CO2 as a poisonous gas and therefore all interventions to the climate emergency should be built around eliminating CO2. The other part of that is that the pundits for the climate emergency will say we have recent, and when I say recent, I mean in the past maybe 200 years, recent human activity has caused the acceleration of the emergency that we have. But what doesn't make sense is that we're introducing new technology that hasn't had the benefit of time to be proven, not to exacerbate in the future. So more knowledge, more conversation, balanced with the best data that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Eddie. Eddie, I'm so tired. Mr. Boutsakakis. Same question to you. What is your party going to do to combat the climate emergency?
Again, Payman, I'll reject the premise of that question. There is no climate emergency. CO2 is not a poisonous gas. The science, statistics, and all these graphs that they'll show you, they're skewed. If we had a hot summer 3 years ago and we have a cool summer this year and the difference in temperature will be 3, 4, 5 degrees, a scientist can make it look like, we're going to be burning in hell in about 5 to 10 years. There is no climate emergency. And I propose that if nobody had ever mentioned the word climate change, climate emergency, nobody would have ever even noticed. So there's nothing to do with our climate emergency. And even if there was, Canada possesses over 500 to 600 billion trees. That's more than 500 billion trees. We can we can absorb any pollution that we have. There is no climate emergency. It's a hoax.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Boutsakakis. Mr. Eadie, I'm going to go back to you. With respect, sir, you said that you framed the issue as if there's two different sides of the discussion here, those that support climate change and those that don't, when in reality, all of the scientific community, all of academia, Hollywood, politics, even our three-letter agencies have confirmed and they're on board with the existence of climate change, and furthermore that it's an existential threat. What gives your party the right to go against that grain?
Well, I'll object that all of scientific community across the globe are not in consensus. I know that because in my public policy and global affairs class, while I was doing my master's, a very renowned professor, whose name I will not mention, that took me on the climate course, did specify that the modeling for establishing the 2% maximum temperature rise was somewhat arbitrarily set, more to effect emotional response from the global population than science. And the model also shows that if you had hit that target anyway, it would have been too late if we ever hit it. So I just said that to make the point that no, not all scientific the community across the world are in agreement. And without we don't have sufficient time. Or you can find very knowledgeable professors and professionals across the U.S. and Canada who have a different perspective. The problem is our three letter government agencies and the governments have a motivation to perpetuate the hoax that Jim has referred to, and they have limited conversations from dissenting or at least counter voices. In this climate change or climate emergency thing, we have to adopt the 10th man theory or process, which is to say, even if 9 people out of 10 see the same issue the same way, the 10th man is obligated to have an opposing perspective, if for nothing else, to cause the investigation of the 9 being wrong. We have to, the issue of an existential threat for all of humanity is so important that we cannot rely on a unified
Thank you.
consensus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eady. Mr. Boutsakakis, same question to you. What gives your party the right to assume such a contrarian position to the global consensus on climate change?
The consensus is not absolute, and I would urge people to do their own research. Science today has been corrupted. People have to remember that the Earth is billions of years old. Just statistics from hundreds of millions of years ago, we know that CO2 as a percentage of the atmosphere is less than 0.5%. We have an atmosphere that's made of 78% nitrogen, 18% oxygen, some off gases, but less than 0.5% is CO2. Today, we have approximately 250 parts per million of CO2. During the time of the dinosaurs, it is estimated through science that this was in the thousands, about 4,000 parts per million. And the Earth was lush, full of plants, and it was very habitable. We are now at the low end of CO2, but they somehow convinced us that we have to reduce it even further. I think climate change is being used in order to instill fear, especially in the newer generation. Young kids are being indoctrinated in schools to have climate anxiety, and the obvious next step in the next few years for them would be to be coerced into limits on their travel, limits on what they eat, limits on their freedoms, limits on where they can travel. I'm sorry, people just have the science is not settled. The science that goes against the so-called consensus is being silenced. Again, there is no climate emergency. This is just a tool used by governments to attain further and further control over our lives.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Boutsakakis. The next question, I'll keep your microphone unmuted. The next question is going to you again, Mr. Boutsakakis. And that question is, what will the People's Party do to promote and or push forward truth and reconciliation?
Yeah, truth and reconciliation. We've been told that Canada is a genocidal country, that we've committed genocide for the Native peoples. It's terrible that the Canadian government, the elected officials of our country, perpetrate this lie. The mass grave hoax is now has been proven that there has not been mass graves. Yet, what does our government do? They're going to criminalize truth. They're going to tell people that you can no longer state the obvious. This is right out of George Orwell's book of 1984. There isn't a Canadian alive today or an immigrant that was brought over that has committed crimes or genocide of anybody, and there isn't anybody alive that has been the victim of anything. We need to come together as Canadians. We are all equal under the law, and let's stop falling for these divide and conquer tactics, whether it's climate, truth and reconciliation, racism, or any other of these preposterous things that our politicians put forward. It takes away from the greatness of our country, Payman, and there's nothing left to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boutsakakis. Mr. Eady, same question to you. Lord, what was the question? What will your party do to promote and push forward truth and reconciliation?
Well, I think that the answer is in that question itself, and Jim has been is spot on. Is to promote the truth. What's the truth? As long as we have one-sided view of an account of events, and we have the government pushing that side, then we're not sure what the truth is. But if we open up the conversation to both people that have different accounts of what happened, and there's an open and transparent examination of what that truth is, then we can arrive at what the truth is. Has there been genocide and mass graves and all the um, artifacts that have been dug up, then we understand what it is. So the first stage is to pursue the truth and pursue it openly and transparently. And reconciliation is an ongoing thing. It doesn't matter that it's between a colonist, a colonizer group and a host group. We have to move on together as one Canada. The whole world, as it is right now, is the outcome of, for the most in recent history, either violent or subterfuge uh, excursions by other groups. But the world has to proceed. Once we have to agree to move on together and to elevate everybody's rights and access to the pursuit of life, freedom, and happiness to the same pedestal, and then we can make good progress from there.
Thank you, Mr. Eady. I'm not going to ask any follow-up surprise questions because there's a good question from the audience, and I want to move this along and get to that. There's a funny comment from the audience. Our poor kids are being educated in Jonestown, from Peter Piker. I thought that was funny. If anybody doesn't know, Jonestown is the Jonestown massacre when they drank the Kool-Aid. So I guess the next question is going to go to you, Mr. Eady. Are we at our last question? We are. With the Trump administration drifting towards the far right, how can we keep the U.S.-style politics outside of Canada?
I will respectfully say that the objective is not to keep any style of politics out of Canada. The objective is to drive a government character and performance that is best for Canadian, and that's government that is transparent, focused on the population and on citizenship, and will do everything right by the government, by the people. I beg your pardon. And so that's what my party will strive to do. If the Trump administration is focused on the American people, is transparent and honest, and is doing everything it can to elevate the U.S. economy and the lives of U.S. citizens, and detracting the expansion of globalist organizations that would derail the sovereignty of his people, then I would say he checks all the marks of a good governance. If you compare that with what the Liberal government has done to us since COVID and since before, I would say that we need to kick out that style of the style of liberal politics in Canada and infuse the style of Trump politics in Canada if all those boxes are checked. So I'll reaffirm and repeat myself. We're not the objective is not to kick out any style of politics or government. The objective is to do right by Canadians. Whatever that right is, whatever that style of politics comes from, we have to imbibe because that's what's going to elevate the livelihood, the standard of care, and the rich cultural and pride that Canadians should have in their country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eady. Mr. Boutsakakis, same question. Far right, the rise of far right politics in the U.S. How do we keep it out of Canada?
Far right. I think it is the fear by the establishment, media, and government to keep populist movements out of Canada. You can't disparage 75 million or 100 million Americans who support President Trump and call them far right. I'll give you an example. In Europe, they canceled an election in Romania with Mr. Georgescu because they didn't like the results the European Union did. In Germany, they are actively persecuting the AfD, the leading party in that country. We just saw in France how they have, convicted and are going to be jailing Marine Le Pen. We saw in Brazil Mr. Bolsonaro, who's now on trial and is slated, he's going to be convicted and be jailed. And we saw what they did to President Trump. And of course, all these movements in the media have been labeled as far right, extremist. Viktor Orban in Hungary, who's a very popular leader, has been labeled an extremist because he doesn't support the war in Ukraine. And they're talking about, depriving Hungary of their European Union vote because of that. The media has been using labels such as far right extremist. I mean, they've used Nazi to describe President Trump. I mean, the man lowers your taxes and he's a Nazi. The media is scared. The media has lost the confidence of the people. And we're seeing a revolution where, people are getting their news sources, or at least the truth, from other sources of media. So this far right narrative is a little it's a little done, don't you think, Payman?
I do, but I have to pretend like I'm objective here. So
Oh, okay.
you're not. This is a debate, sir. You are not allowed to talk to me.
Okay. Well, that's it.
No, I'm
That's
just
all I have to
joking.
say.
All right, thanks, Jim. So we're down to a final question, and this is from Prairie. She asked this in the last panel. We didn't have a chance to answer it. So I believe, oh Lord, I don't know whose turn it is. Let's go with Jim, Mr. Boutsakakis. It's your turn. Would you make any changes to the Senate? And let me just clarify the question. The Western provinces have 12 Senate seats combined. Ontario has 12. Quebec has 12. I think the Maritimes have even more than the West. So there's an argument to be made that the West is not being treated fairly, either Ontario or Quebec. Any one of them can veto the collective will of the West. Mr. Boutsakakis, would you make any changes or propose changes to the Senate, sir?
We would certainly propose changes. To have changes done is very difficult in our country. It would require constitutional amendments, which in itself would be rejected by Quebec and Ontario. But the person asking the question is definitely correct. The West has been, not been respected. They're underrepresented. The Senate is unelected. They're basically a rubber stamp for the government in power. We certainly need reform. I would support and I would even propose amendments and changes to our Senate. It is it's basically a rubber stamp today, and the West has been treated very unfairly, from the transfer payments to representation in Ottawa with regards to their natural resources. Alberta has put up with a lot, to stay in this country. And we're seeing grumblings about a separatist movement, and I can totally understand that. But yes, we would, and I would support, and I would even propose amendments to our Senate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boutsakakis. And same question to you, Mr. Edie. Something about the Senate. I can't remember the question. Go ahead.
I do. Yes, I would propose changes, but for a different reason. Well, I guess they all tie together. Well, the principle of democracy rests on true representation of the will of the people, and that the will of the people is acted out in all things. And so the way that the Canadian Senate is structured, again, like Jim has said, is a rubber stamp, and the authority, the power to pick that team is very, very restricted within the portfolio of one individual, and I think that is very undemocratic. My party will propose sweeping reforms in the electoral process and in the government process. Max has spoken so much about moving from first past the post to proportional representation. That will go hand in hand with changes in the Senate. Ultimately, the process that we will espouse is one that removes power from a few and spreads power as much as possible from the center, so that the will of the people is more represented, and there's less likelihood of a small minority hijacking the will of the people and directing government that works against the people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eady. We are again, because it was only the two of you. We're at the end of the panel now, so we'll go with Mr. Boutsakakis and then Mr. Eady. Tell the audience, why should your members in your riding vote for you? I'll give you more latitude. You can talk for 3 minutes if you like. Why should they vote for you? Go ahead, sir.
You know, today, people are subjected to a lot of, I would call it propaganda. It is hard to believe that the Trudeau Liberals, and let's not forget, this is the same Liberal Party that has been in government for the past 10 years, is actually leading in polls. And although 6 to 8 weeks ago they looked destined to be turfed out, and today the media, the campaign is that Trump's tariffs is what this election is about. And I can tell you, for the people of Hamilton, who are big steel producers, for southwestern Ontario, where we have a massive auto industry, these jobs, these families are being sacrificed at the altar of the hate Trump narrative perpetrated by our governments, both of them, who instead of negotiating with President Trump, and I think it would have been a very easy negotiation, you know, President Trump is not happy with the tariffs that we impose, and he's not happy about our illegal immigration. This could be solved in an hour. But no, our politicians are going to ride this hate Trump narrative to the detriment of my constituents and this whole country. Only the People's Party has a common sense approach to this. We would resolve this trade dispute and not sacrifice any jobs. In fact, I would argue that our party would get preferential treatment with President Trump because of our proximity and our historical, alliance, along with us and them being each other's biggest trading partners. Our politicians today don't care. They are self-serving. The interests of the people are not what they concern themselves with. And in Hamilton, the steel industry is a big industry. A lot of families are going to be impacted by this. And what does our politicians do? Both conservatives and liberals are out there pounding their fists how we're going to take on President Trump. Let's be realistic. The American economy is over 10 times bigger than ours. We need to negotiate with President Trump and resolve this in the best interests of Canadians. Picking a fight to gain political points is not doesn't serve the interests of Canadians. It is disgusting. I hope Canadians wake up to the reality that our elected officials don't care. The People's Party is the strongest message you can send to Ottawa, that we've had enough and we're going to go in a different direction.
Thank you, Mr. Boutsakakis. Let me bring myself over here. And Mr. Eady, same question to you. Why should the members of your riding vote for you?
I think that my riding and the whole of BC is ripe for a change in the style of government. I'd made reference to the fact that I grew up in Nigeria, and government propaganda is something that we grew up under. The government actually lying to the people and doing something else. And for the ones that they cannot deceive, they use brute force to put down. That is what I grew up under. Maybe I was naive, but I didn't think I'll see government propaganda so outward and so open in Canada. And even if I was naive, well, I guess that's why my constituents should vote for me, because I see what the government is doing. They are leading by deception. Case in point is our dear Premier David Eby trying to use emergency powers to expand and set aside democratic boundaries in order to fight a fictitious enemy in Donald Trump and the tariffs. And it's sad that a government that is supposed to be serving its people is choosing to deceive and to co-opt them into fighting a boogeyman that doesn't exist. And so why I want my riding constituents to vote for me is because I think that we have to impose a new standard on government and on governance, to emphasize the will of the people. We have to put new performance measures on all our government agencies and the government themselves, and that is what I choose to bring to the table. It does not matter what our party loyalties are. We are first Canadians and British Columbians, and the framework upon which we stand, and that this country was built hundreds of years before I arrived here, is the equality of individuals and the perception that the government serves the people. There has been a departure from that. And so, before we can responsibly try to solve all these issues we talked about: climate change, truth and reconciliation, the gender ideology machine. Before we can hope to solve those issues, we have to be united and understand that we hold out the people who are in government to high standards of performance. And this comes down to the role of the media. I will propose a new standard of regulation for our state-funded media, because it's very, very sad that the taxpayers' money would fund media organizations that turn around and propagate propaganda, or at least report one side of the story, thereby either willfully deceiving or misinforming the people. And so the standards of journalism has to go hand in hand with the performance of democracy. We have to hold the people that report on the news and inform us to the highest standards of journalism. And if there be any iota of partisanship in their performance, then there should be quick and decisive and penalties for those people who run those organizations. So this is why my ridings constituents should vote for me, because we're bringing a fresh new look to governance, and it's entirely centered on the people, what is best for the people, what is best for them, from their family unit all the way to the all the 100, I believe 100 nearly 100 million people in my riding. So that's what I want that vote, and I hope that all those that are listening in will see need to turn a new page. I will close by saying this to all people who are listening: take a step of faith, try something new, because there's great things that lie beyond the veil of ignorance on the other side. Thanks for having me, Payman.
Thank you, Mr. Eady.
Thanks for having me, Payman.
Yeah, let's make us all equals now. John, you can unmute. We're at the end of the episode. I'm just gonna read some of the comments. I mean, nothing too, yes, John, you got some supporters. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim is the first one that used tariff dispute and not the inflammatory narrative tariff war. Congrats, Jim. Nice, John. So you have one follower, Prairie. Unfortunately, she's in a different riding. She's in Manitoba or Saskatchewan, but wonderful person.
Well, it's a national movement. We appreciate all support wherever they spring up from.
Oh, Peter Biker. This was amazing. Thanks all. You're welcome, Peter. All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming on. Best of luck to your campaign. And
You too, Payman.
You're welcome, Jim. Have a good night, John.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.